Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough regular meeting. It's June 19th, 2017. Tonight's agenda, we have the annual pleasure of recognizing our retirees, which is always the best thing to start with. We'll then recognize any visitors who'd like to be heard. We have some minutes to approve. We have a teaching and learning highlight from the Ahern Middle School. We are going to look at our student handbook for the high school and look at some additions and revisions. We then have a new draft for our 2017 to 2020 strategic plan. We have, following that, the social emotional learning program review report. We'll then talk about elementary science and the elementary science program adoption. We'll then continue our discussion regarding the superintendent's annual evaluation. And finally, we will take up any other matters. So, without further ado, why don't I turn it over to the superintendent to begin the recognition of our retirees.
So this is one of our favorite times of the year to recognize people who have retired in the last calendar year, actually. So they may have retired actually last summer or September. It could have been the fall. Anyone who's retired since we last recognized them at this place in June. So we have many all esteemed retirees. Would you like to read the name, or would you like me to?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. So what we're going to have you do, retirees, is when we announce your name, if you want to sit up, you're going to come around this way. We do like to congratulate you personally, and then Bevy is our exit strategy on the way out, and be careful of the cords.
Please, I don't want any of
the cords on the side.
Chunky cords there, so.
Because that would be a retirement story.
I'll exit you.
Do you think it would be easier if we read all the names and then asked them to come through?
Oh, I think that'd be great.
Would that be a little easier?
Sure.
And maybe as
or let them kind of start filing up, maybe, so they'll.
Maybe they could. I know. Maybe they could stand, because I know the people watching at home, they'll stand when you hear your name.
If you're here, if you'd stand, that'd be great.
Then
that might just make it easier than the up and down, up and down. So
I agree.
We'll begin in alphabetical order with Betty Binkowitz. Date of retirement, October 2016, 19 years of service as an educational assistant at Foxborough High School. I think we should do maybe a round of applause for each one. Thank you, Betty. Karen Burrell Murray.
I believe she's here tonight.
Yeah. Retired October 2016 with 18 years of service as an educational assistant at Foxborough High School. Congratulations, Karen. Susan Burrows, 14 years of service as a wellness teacher at the IGO. Congratulations. Paul Charpentier, with 31 years of service, retiring as the science department head and teacher at Foxborough High School. Mary Ellen Davis, 19 years of service as a librarian assistant at the Ahern Middle School. Judith Kaklutis.
No, she's not here.
12 years of service in the special ed department at the Borough School. We had a lot of retirees this year.
We did.
Too many.
Do we have to let them all go?
No.
Actually, some of them we still see around, actually.
Okay,
And some of them are still driving our buses. Because that's what they do in retirement.
We can't leave.
Our next retiree is Annette Kahn Arcangeli. 9 years of service at the Foxborough High School Special Ed Department.
Is she back there?
What? No, she's not here. Probably because she's recovering from the high school teachers' retirement party on Thursday. It was good.
Next is Sharon Kelly, our nurse at Foxborough High School, 27 years of service. We have Patricia Larkin, 32 years as a bus driver here in the Foxborough School Department. That's a lot of miles.
Plus.
We also have Jean Lincoln, 34 years, also as a bus driver for the Foxborough School Department.
And thank you for taking such careful driving. You helped our buses last longer than their lifetimes. We appreciated that.
A few more. Joan Marino, 25 years as a math teacher at Foxborough High School. Stephen Massey, 37 years, retiring as the music department head and teacher at Foxborough High School. I have to just say, and I've called out some individuals at other past events, so I won't name anyone individually tonight, but if I just look at the numbers of service already, 37 years, 34 years, 32 years, 31 years, we have a collective total at the bottom of our chart we've been given. With the 16 retirees we'll recognize tonight, a combined 371 years of service to the Foxborough schools. Outstanding. Walter Mitchell, 20 years of service as an English teacher and former department head, Foxborough High School.
He saw the light and went back to the classroom.
Maureen Norton, 18 years as an educational assistant at the Ahern Middle School. Lawrence Stafford, in our maintenance department for the Foxborough Public Schools with 23 years of service.
Which is why our buildings are in such good shape.
And finally, another 30-year plus member, Catherine Tolland, 33 years, grade 3 teacher at the Igo Elementary School. So now, retirees, if you would do us the pleasure of just coming on up so we can shake your hand, and we have a small thank you gift we'd like to present as you come through. In any order is fine.
Oh, if they're alphabetical, she has the gifts all alphabetical.
Well, that's Bevy's challenge.
I just need one more challenge right now. Bring it on. Bring it on. Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you.
They're both still some bus driving.
Yeah.
Oh, we're still around. For how long? We drove today. We're driving tomorrow.
Of course you are.
Well, tomorrow on the route then.
Dennis can't get it that way,
I'm glad I associated you with that.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
I always say thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You're my generation. This is probably but your time was fun. I wish I could have seen all of It's good. That's the way it should be.
I'm the rookie in line.
It should be.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Just so much. Exactly.
Can I just take mine?
I'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
And I just got an email the other day from Schooll. He retired last August, and they're buying a house in the Vosges.
I think we'll be waiting a while.
All righty, here
Sort
we
of
go.
a poignant moment because my children had several of these people, so
And I saw Paul.
definitely role models and influencers of all of our children.
They've driven children of children.
Sure, I know.
Several generations.
Okay. You don't have to.
I'm still going to argue with him about that door they cut it out the wall in the auditorium.
371 years.
No.
And I'm going to go to trial tonight, so I'm still hanging. Good girl. If you're in something, let me know. Because you still have my email, right?
Bye, thank you.
I'm sorry the retirees have left. I was going to suggest they do a homework assignment and write a 6-page dissertation on the experience they had at Foxborough schools.
They are out of here.
I guess we won't be able to give them that. And how appropriate, Bevy, that you would be the last one to give them the handshake, and congratulations.
Thank you for letting me do that. It meant a lot to me, having worked with them.
Wonderful. It's
Okay.
always one of my favorites.
Too bad we can't just adjourn.
I know. Right? Well, how about after the kids?
All right.
I know, we
Well,
need
that's
our
true. We have to go
highlight.
from one highlight to another highlight. Before we do that, though, are there any visitors in the audience who wish to be heard tonight? Please come on up, state your name.
My name's Joe Garrity, and I'm a student at Foxborough High School. And I have something to ask Mr. Yukna, which is about, besides doing the concessions in the bathrooms this summer, what other work we're doing this summer for maintenance repairs?
Those are actually the only large things. We just have our standard maintenance. Other than that, Joe. The
Like
building-
normal cleaning, normal computer upgrades and all that?
Exactly.
Any other?
Nope, nothing
Not-
special this summer.
Not like telephone replacement or?
Nope. No, we did all that before.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other visitors who wish to be seen or heard? Seeing none, we'll look at the regular meeting minutes from June 5th. Any comments?
I just had one.
Yes.
On page 3, as far as the video, it was for technology, it was over the last 4 years, not 5.
Okay.
Which page?
Page 3,
Technology update.
under the technology plan update, on the second paragraph, halfway through.
4 years.
All right.
Anybody else have
Line
any?
down.
Go ahead, Jan.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments? I had two, if I could, Janet, and I'd asked the committee to help me with this. There were two things that we asked for as follow-ups. One was not to follow it back to us, but I think a request. That was under the Wellness Committee and the food service update. I think we had just highlighted the point that we'd like them to involve the students in more regular formal and informal reviews. That was a theme. They're doing a great job. They're very pleased, I know, but that was something we talked about a little bit, that they hadn't done a lot of that yet, and we said that'd be great if they could. Is that okay? And then also, and I hope Tina and Chris might help me here, but under technology also, I remember one of the things that was highlighted by Mr. Heyer and Dr. Bertos was, and Amy, you can help with this as well, the keyboarding and the cursive and some of the writing. And I remember asking that maybe we get a 1-year comeback on
You
that
did.
because it was something new, right?
Right.
Was that what it was about?
Yes, so we've been piloting this year keyboarding, so to come back and look at how did that go?
Yeah.
And recommendations from that, and how it connects with cursive.
I believe the cursive was part of the English.
Right, it was
language
cursive and
arts.
grammar, I think,
And
were the two
gram-
things you
yeah.
wanted an update on. Am I right?
Cursive and grammar.
Janet and I reviewed it the next day with a note. She has it
It's
on
on
a
one
note.
of the agendas for next year.
For next
but
year
I think I
already. She's
remember
already
Sue Forrest talking about it.
Yep.
She
Yeah,
was
I think
talking
it was,
about
yes, I think
Yeah.
it was cursive,
Yeah.
because cursive did go across both the tech plan and the English.
So you wanted an update on
Cursive and grammar,
versus
Yeah,
keyboarding.
I think so, and
She
there
was
was-
talking about kids and with their signatures, and that's what they were going to focus on?
Right,
Okay.
because I think, there's so much that we covered in technology. Bevy, you would have been blown away. I'm sure you saw the replay or read it, but there's so much that we focused on technology. But that was a new area that it sounded like it would be something just to checkpoint status on, and Amy
Okay.
said she wouldn't mind doing that. So maybe if we can
So we
just,
can put that in the
just
minutes?
make that as something.
So maybe add to the second part, the committee requested an update on keyboarding next spring.
Fine, yeah. Within a year's time, next spring,
In
whatever
a
whatever you're
year's,
whatever
in a
you're
year's time. That sounds good.
Do you want to say versus cursive writing or and cursive
Well, that's not
writing?
under
comfortable. Yeah,
technology.
no, I would,
Okay.
yeah.
That's on, that was under ELA, and we did note that.
All right, thank you for the.
Do
thank
you
for
want
the-
to, actually, that's a good question. Do you want a similar sentence under ELA review?
I would say if the committee or you and Amy feel that'd be helpful. then that'd be,
Well, it would identify it and remind us that we've spoken of it.
Well, we
as a flag.
we already put it on the agenda for a
It is
year from
on
now,
the
believe it or
agenda.
not, but anyhow.
yeah.
Because we
Let's
don't
just
like
put
to
it there
lose
as
things.
well.
Okay, good. And that was cursive writing and grammar. Janet?
ELA.
It's nice to be at a point in these discussions where we can really dive deep on a couple of things further and look at them in more depth with everything else working so smoothly, so thank you for that. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2017, as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I'm going to vote in favor, even though I was not there, because I want this noted as the public record.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. And I should mention that Mrs. Weiss is not with us tonight, but I know we'll see her again soon. But she let me know she wouldn't be able to attend. Amy, just one last thing, just while we're on the topic of technology. We had so much to cover in such a short period of time, but one of the things that we talked about and that I was reviewing again today was your new data warehouse and analytics system, Illuminate Education.
Yes.
It'd be great to get a demonstration once you feel comfortable with how you're using that.
I'd love to.
We don't spend a lot of time with that on that as a committee, but I think it'd be neat to see some of the uses of data. Well, and I would say when you feel comfortable, if that's all right with the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, now, fine young students of the Ahern Middle School, are you ready?
You can pull your chairs up along with Mr. Sharman right to that guest table right there. And I'm actually going to, you can see what it says, Ahern Middle School Invention Convention, second place out of 30. But I'm going to let
I think
Dr.
that's
Burdos
great.
introduce it because she's the one that booked them for this evening.
All right.
Do we have students?
Yeah, they went out to, they went out to get,
Okay.
they went out, they were here, but that's all right, Phyllis. They went out to get their props.
Great.
So,
Scared them when you said they were going to be
I
on
was
TV.
walking in the back of the middle school when I saw Mr. Sharman and these fabulous students walking in with what you are getting ready to see.
Oh, wow.
And they were so excited. They had just come back from Bridgewater State University from winning second place out of 30 in the Invention Convention. And they stopped and modeled or illustrated for me what they invented. And I was so excited that all of the STEM and the focus that we've been doing, it just played out beautifully right here. So I'll let them explain to you what they invented.
and if you could introduce the
Sure.
students as well.
So, I'm a math teacher at the middle school, and I've had the honor and privilege of coaching and leading a team of students in the Invention Convention group for many years, and I'm always very impressed with their creativity and ingenuity and follow-through to make a prototype. And this year's team invented the U-turning utensils, and it's a solution to a common problem in the kitchen that, including me, has, where we have all our utensils stuffed, at least at my house, stuffed into a big bowl or a drawer. So instead of that, the kids came up with an idea, and I'll let you tell them all about it.
So yeah, basically, this is powered by a phone, or you can hand power it. And it basically, you put this in a corner of your house, and it spins around to say the utensils you want, and then you press on with your phone, and then when you turn it off, say you want the steak thing, you just grab it, and then you can put it back on.
Can you demonstrate turning on and off the phone?
Great. So the app we use is called SwitchMate, and
It's called what? Excuse me?
SwitchMate.
Oh, SwitchMate.
And
to turn it on, you just press on.
then start spinning.
Oh, that's something.
Cool. Very cool.
If you make it go really fast, does it serve as a dryer? That's really
We're not there
crazy.
yet.
You're not there? All right.
That's next year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then just press a button, it turns off.
Then you can also use timers to situate, like, knowing when you're going to be in the kitchen and say stuff like that. But you can also use it for, like, your tools, your toolbox instead of a toolbox. You have it.
So how does that work? How does the app work with the turntable?
So it has a Bluetooth signal that goes to a switch, which is down here.
Ah.
And then when you press, it basically turns the switch on, which you can also do manually, and then it starts spinning.
Very clever.
I need one of those.
Very cool.
Could you introduce yourselves?
Yes.
I'm Joe McCabe.
I'm Reba Baig.
And I'm Victor Nukovic.
Class, which grade are you in?
8th grade.
Yep.
8th grade.
8th grade.
So, Joe, since we haven't heard from you yet, what was your favorite part about participating on this team in that competition?
It felt really good when we were on the bus on the way home. I was expecting to win much, but we won second place, so I was like pretty excited about that.
I guess.
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with this idea?
It was his idea.
Yeah, it was Victor's.
I just looked at my kitchen things before I came to school, and then I was just like, all right, what if we did that? It wasn't a very complex idea. More
Did
like,
they give you guidelines for what your invention, or was it just wide
It was
open? You
wide
could come
open.
up with anything?
Yeah.
Really cool.
Wide open, they give you.
Yeah.
Well, you say it wasn't a very, what was your word? You said it wasn't a very complicated or fancy idea, but it seems to have been a pretty prize-winning idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think you got higher marks because, well, first of all, I didn't know an app could control a gadget in your house anyway. But do you think it's because you were trying to solve a problem that, like a real problem that people often have, rather than just be
Yeah,
something that
and
is
I
fancy?
think like also because like it wasn't like a very hard design to make, and we were able to make it.
Yeah, a lot of the inventions there, a lot of them were like very far-fetched. Not far-fetched, but like big ideas that were really impossible to make with like the budget that was given.
And like a big corporation would need to make these certain ideas, but this could be made by your average Joe.
Was it at
Joe.
Or your average
competition at Bridgewater State?
Yes.
Yeah.
30 teams from across
30
southern
teams.
New England.
Is that a big trophy
Including
on
some
the floor?
from the school that I teach at.
Hold that up. Nice.
Can you talk a little bit too about your design process and how you had to go back and do some redesigning on it?
So basically, designing it went pretty smoothly. But we came up with a little bump because these utensils, the larger ones, were hitting the plug when it spun. So we added this little plate that underneath it, which raised,
To lift it up.
Yeah.
raised up the plate. And so it was able to spin a lot easier. But that was really the only big bump that we faced.
Was this a class at the school, or did you do it after school?
It's like
it was after
yeah.
school, before school.
Yeah.
It's a club.
Nice.
Wow.
It's a great trophy.
It's fabulous.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Great
It's
job.
impressive. Any other questions for our fabulous future scientists or inventors?
I'm good.
Does this make
Very
you guys want to invent more things? Or is this the end of your invention career?
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe in the future, you never know.
if something comes up in my mind.
Ah,
Yeah, that's often how it works,
yeah,
isn't it?
isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so impressive.
That's
so
great.
impressive.
And Mr.
Who
Sharman, if
gets
they're
to take
doing
that
it.
home?
Ew, good
Mrs.
question.
Abrams, I think. Oh, you mean I thought you meant the trophy.
The trophy.
This is going in our display case. 'cause we're
Nice.
selling these units.
I wondered.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
So, Mr. Sharman, you're in before school, after school, whatever they need, huh?
Yeah, we work around each other's schedule.
You look like you took some enjoyment out of this
Oh, it's
project.
great. I love working with the kids.
I think
Like I
Mrs.
said, their
Abrams here.
ideas are fabulous.
I can see Mrs. Abrams.
They're great. You know, Victor said, oh, it just came, but we really had a lot of sessions.
I'll bet you
I
so.
bet.
Yeah.
You know, different ideas for different inventions, and they have all these ideas that,
Hmm.
you know, that are new, different.
Well, I know you made Mrs. Abrams proud, I see that. And, of course, anything you do under STEM, and Mrs. Mello's going to be smiling as big as she is right now. So I was just very impressed. 30 is a pretty hefty field for a
Yes.
competition.
Second place out of 30. huh?
Second out of 30. That's
Wow.
great.
I think we owe you guys a round of applause.
Awesome. Terrific.
There
Nice
are
job.
two other students that were on the team, Emma Sergey and Pam Nelson.
Oh,
that are
thank you.
not here.
I'm
Okay.
glad you said that.
Wonderful.
Congrats to all of you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Sure.
Is this invention going for?
Good question.
What's the retail price?
We're not sure.
We're not sure.
But it's
it will depend on how many features it has. If it has.
This is just a prototype.
Prototype. Spoken like a true scientist.
You could sell several right here tonight if you had order forms with you.
If only one of you guys knew a business teacher who could help with a business plan.
Is there one here?
I can get you a good patent attorney.
There you go.
Coming to a high school near you.
You're right, exactly.
Hey, we really appreciate
Wow.
you guys coming in at the end of the school year and
Yeah.
showing us your inventions. Very cool.
Yeah, it
very
really
cool.
is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much.
much.
Congratulations.
That's terrific.
That is awesome. I want one of those. I know. I'm thinking of my mess of utensils on my kitchen counter.
Most of my stuff is in a drawer and then one jug too.
Too, I'm in the
And I'm-
jammed up drawer category. All right, that
Wonderful.
was wonderful.
That was great.
Good observation.
They were so excited. They were so excited. I was so excited.
Terrific.
Okay. Foxborough High School 2017-2018 Student Handbook Additions Revisions.
Yes, so we'll invite Mrs. Myers-Packler, high school principal, and Mr. Cormier, who's our athletic director. As you know, we publish the handbook each summer. At the beginning, around January, you usually see the changes in course selections and things like that for the program of studies. And any changes to the handbook also have to be reviewed by the committee. And I know they've been working really hard at the high school to identify the changes that they would like to suggest for your approval. So welcome, Diana and Rich.
Thank you. I don't know what follows that invention piece, but
We're going to give you a trophy if you do.
I'm telling you, Shark Tank, here they come. We can see it all now. They'll be marketing it soon. So, but good evening, everybody, and welcome soon to summer, I know. So a few additions or a few modifications to the handbook that we do have coming. In the packet that you received, it may not be in the exact order, but one of the new additions that we're very excited about is the addition of another honor society, and this will be the National Art Honor Society. The department head, Kelly Akacha, has done the research on it and has just put this information together for you. This has gone out to students, so they'll be aware of it come the fall. So we're looking forward to students being involved in that and being inducted in. I'm going to hold the athletic handbook portion of it and go right to the other pieces of the handbook. And what, there was a small committee that was headed by, it's a subcommittee of school council, that was headed by Assistant Principal Beth Sylvia. And one of the things that we found out this year is that the state has changed a couple of things. So our NG that we were using, the state no longer will accept as a grade going in. So we knew we needed to do a modification. And in taking a look at—
NG stood for?
No grade.
No grade, just to remind.
So that coupled with just, we've now had it in place for a year and a half. The staff really felt as if they really much preferred what we had before with some modifications going forward. Variety of different reasons that were out there. So we said, okay, and what were some of those changes? And so that's what you see here. So I believe you do have the colored, do you have the colored?
Yes, they do.
pieces? Good.
Yep.
So if you just turn to the first page in there, in student responsibility, it's still 14 absences that a student has, but where it used to be that it was, kind of portioned out in each quarter, now it's just going to be across the board. So if it's a semester course, there's 7, whether it's first quarter, second quarter, or whether it's a second semester course and it's third quarter and fourth, it's just going to be there's 7 of them.
Okay.
And then for a full year course, there's 14. However those 14 play out is how those 14 will play out. So that's primarily what the student responsibility is in that first paragraph. Students can always check to see where they think that they might be at as far as absences are concerned. Then some cleanup and some addition as far as makeup work. I have to say this, one of the things that our graduates have come back to say to us is we had a great education when we were in Foxboro, but some of our teachers were a little bit easy on us, and a little bit easy in the fact that sometimes deadlines weren't hard deadlines. Because why? Again, teachers are human. They know that they've got a human student in front of them. And so sometimes those deadlines, and I'm just talking about the everyday, I'm not talking about extenuating circumstances or anything else, because we'll always meet extensions on, on certain things that might come up with individuals. But just on a regular basis, that sometimes those were very soft deadlines. And so makeup work might go on for a while, it might come at the end of a semester after it's already been weeks long gone, etc. So we said, okay, we're hearing what you're saying, so maybe we need to do some work on our end on that, just that responsibility piece. So what's in yellow is really an addition to. So students are responsible for initiating communication, and we gave examples of current. So our teachers next year in particular are going to be flipping into Office 365, and our teachers are posting on Edmodo now. Many of them are using the Office 365, but the push really for next year is that all teachers will be using that. So students will be able to access the homework on a regular basis, access and download the worksheets or whatever work might be on there. Or they need to have a verbal discussion with a teacher. That should come from a student. They should be saying to a teacher, I was out, what is it that I need, what is that makeup piece? And they need to create a plan for making up work. The 24 hours is on there. That doesn't necessarily mean that the work needs to be in within 24 hours, but I've gone to see my teacher, Mr. Cormier, I was out yesterday, what is it that I need to have? Or I was out 2 days ago, I can't let this get away from me, what's my plan, to make it up? Because we also, and teachers are very aware of the fact that students are taking, if they're out a day, let's say, and they're out sick, that's 6 classes potentially that they have to do makeup work for. So in that case, it may be a very heavy load on top of what they do need to make up. So what is that plan? But I might also need help from Mr. Cormier, but today I'm also going to stay after from Ms. Lord, and Mr. Cormier is not going to be able to be available. So again, just being able to say to students, this is the big time, this is the big league, you need to take, and you really need to be the one to initiate and come up with a plan for what that's going to look like. If a student is absent the day prior to an announced assessment, okay, so a student is absent the day prior, just before, or the day of an announced assessment, and misses the assessment due to being tardy or dismissed or on a field trip. So again, I know tomorrow I'm going on a field trip. I also have an assessment in Mademoiselle's class. I need to make that up, and I need to make that up in a relatively short period of time because I knew it was there. I wasn't sick. I knew that it was expected. I chose to go on a field trip, which we do want students to have experiences outside of school. That is expected to be made up on the day that I come back. Once again, there could be a couple of assessments that are being given on that day. You're participating, so not to penalize, but again, you got to make that plan, and it really is expected that you will. So I'm going to see you. I'm going to see Mr. Cormier, your second period, your third period. I'm doing second first or third first, whatever it might wind up being. And then students are responsible for obtaining missed materials, notes, and assignments by checking the class mode of communication, speaking to the teacher, obtaining from a peer. So just giving, again, it's a handbook. Where do I go to? How do I find it? So that's why those examples are given. Absence due to field trip or school function. Students are responsible for keeping up with the work missed while they are on a school-sponsored field trip. The class following a field trip students must have previously announced homework completed and prepared to take any previously announced test, which is just a repeat of what we had said before. But it's also the homework piece. That homework was due tomorrow. Tomorrow's your field trip. You should really get it in maybe first thing in the morning because most field trips start from here anyway and drop it off in the morning. But if you don't, you need to get it in that very next day. So again, it's just that accountability so things don't get away from students is really what teachers were looking for. And I think it's also an answer to what our students were telling us. We were getting it directly from the horse's mouths. And then total absences, just some clarity in here. In that bullet that's highlighted that a student returning to school from an absence is to be accompanied by a note from a parent or a guardian. The note is acknowledgement that a parent or guardian is aware of the reason for the absence. It does not indicate an excused absence. Very often parents think if I send a note in, it means that it's okay. No, the note is our understanding that you're aware that your child was tardy or that your child was absent. Really, truly, if you're going to call an absence an excused absence, and with 15 in a given year when there's only 180 days that our students are in attendance, that 15 is an awful lot for students to be out. Of course, a bereavement, a doctor's appointment that couldn't be scheduled otherwise. Those are things that we would consider along the line of the excused. But again, notes should always come in. We keep them on file. We make sure we check back on those as well. And then, flipping over to the next page, and again, this is just, again, reiterating about a note coming in if a student is tardy. Some students, a few, a handful. First period is usually always first period unless it's day 2, and then period 2 winds up being first period. Very convenient to come in after first period when I have an assessment first thing in the morning, and then it kind of gets moved to another time frame and all of that. So this is also kind of drawing back a little bit. But again, it's also that if you're tardy, you need to have a note. Our students are really pretty good about having those notes when they do come in from their parent. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an excused absence, because those tardies to class add up, and we know that the time out of class adds up as well.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
The highlighted section says the note is acknowledgement that a parent guardian is aware of the reason for the tardy. It does not indicate an excused tardy.
Correct.
And the next line says, all tardy notes should include the date, explanation for the tardiness, parent signature, and a phone number. So are they including the reason for the tardy, or
Yes,
no?
that should be included in on it.
Okay.
And I guess with all of that addressed, that's the old language, but in looking at it, as we keep looking over, we either include or we just take out that that's the
Okay.
expectation.
Or you can just change
Yeah.
the word explanation to reason.
Reason, sure.
And then, so it says, write a complete note, but it doesn't mean it's excused.
Yes.
Can you still call and say,
Absolutely.
my son has a dentist appointment at 7:30,
Yes.
he'll be in by 8?
Yes, and we do still ask for a note to come in, and if we get the note, that note really should come from a dentist office or a doctor's office.
I
because
just had this happen last week, so.
Oh, no, absolutely. Call in. We know that they're going to be late. I just wanted to let you know that they are coming in, but we also ask that a note come in. And the dentist's office and the doctor's offices
great about
they're
it.
very used to it. And it's not a HIPAA violation or anything else, because the note just says seen by the office. It's just a confirmation.
But
We
if
don't
I
know what it
call
is.
and then send him in with a note from the dentist's
Yes.
office, I don't have to write
No.
another note?
No.
Too?
No, because you've already verbally called in.
Just making sure.
Thank you for that clarity on that. And then, again, another just highlighted, it shows the 8 as being crossed off. It shouldn't be a cross-off, it's just how the scoring went with the old. And it's within that time frame with the students' absences. What we're saying is that the student's responsible for initiating communication with a plan to make up the work within 24 hours.
I have a question in this section. This obviously does not pertain to extended absences due to medical reasons. So I was just wondering if maybe a benign sentence to follow saying extended absences due to medical issues will be handled on a case-by-case basis or something like that.
We could do that.
Yeah,
That would be
because
good,
I
I
think,
think. I
I
think
think
that
that
would
would probably be helpful. Because, I like all the changes you have here, because the whole purpose of a handbook is clarity. It's so that students and parents understand what the rules of the school are, what to do when, if this happens, do this, and for the schools to make sure they've communicated that clearly. So I think that would probably be helpful. Something about
Sure.
how to handle.
We
case-
may actually have it in, I'm just trying to think back, we may actually have it in another section, but it's like anything. We want to make sure that somebody doesn't have to go looking for it, so even if it is redundant, because it's in more than one section, it certainly makes sense, so we'll be sure to add something like that. Thank you.
So is this whole section going to go in where it's in the, I brought my handbook because I actually read it, I consult it, I highlight it. I'm a geek. Where it says pupil absence notification policy, all the old stuff is coming out, and this will be
Yes.
the, okay.
The NG is going out, and.
The other sections over here, though, on absence and dismissal, that stays the same?
Yes, but we're actually going to realign this summer, so it may not look, and we had already started when we were looking at this, we were putting
Yeah.
things where it seemed to make more
Okay.
sense. So you were already receiving kind of a modified little shift in where we were going to, it was a cut and paste that was
And then-
happening.
So you may chunk things differently, but
Yes.
these are
Okay.
the substantive
Yes.
changes.
Okay. And just for clarity's sake, and I'm sorry for being picky, but.
That's okay.
Where you just have 7 absences for a semester course, including jazz choir and jazz ensemble. You've called those out twice. In our program of studies, they're 3 times a cycle, but they're full-year classes, and I really think you should just use the same language. Either just say a semester course and not mention jazz band or jazz choir, or if you're going to mention those classes, put in parentheses 3 times a cycle, full year, because they're not semester courses.
And we can
But
look-
they
what
are
page are you
half-time,
on?
so I see, I'm on, I don't know, they're not numbered, so.
It's on the
I'm on
second,
the
it says
second
notification times.
Where it says
Page looks like
notification
this.
times, this one right
Oh,
here.
yeah, lots of yellow. Tina, that's wording that was in the handbook from before.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll certainly take a look at that, we'll review that, and make sure that it's an even number.
I don't know if it got changed in the program of studies as we tighten things up. I just, and I know the point is that they were only meeting 3 times a cycle, so that, you know, the fewer absences, but it's not a semester course.
Sure, we'll
so.
try to give as much clarity and make that concrete and
I like
equal to what the
consistency.
others are. Sure.
Any other comments about the homework section and the attendance policy section?
Could we go back to the National Honor Society
Sure.
section? I think it sounds great. I did notice in the handbook that we don't have separate sections for the Spanish, French, and ASL Honor Society. So, I mean, if we're gonna, are we putting all this language into the handbook?
I am going to speak to Kelly about that because we
Yeah.
don't have all of the specifics. We don't have the handbook for NHS,
Right.
nor do we have kind of the handbook for the others. So this is more information for you. This is what
Okay.
the expectations will be.
Yeah.
And it probably will be the modified version because otherwise we'd be stacked like this when it
Yeah,
comes to
that
it.
was just my thought. I said, I don't think this is all.
And for those students who are interested,
Right.
they'll receive that information. Or those students who qualify to apply.
Right, okay. I just wanted to
Sure.
clarify that. Thank you.
One comment I've heard from Diana, and I don't know if this is just typical high school student talk, but I've heard it said that being in the Honor Society isn't that big a deal anymore. So I don't know if that thought process, I assume that's not valid. I think we still want our students to aspire to any of our honor societies. But I just throw that out because as you think about what to include and what not to, maybe that would factor in. The fact that we want to continue to encourage that, you know, it still is something that, you know, we want our students to aspire to. Just a thought.
Absolutely.
Question, and I agree with the superintendent's comment. I have no issue with any of it. I think it's great for clarity. I think clarity should be in the handbook. But for a parent who might look at this and say, wow, this is tough and it's all on the student and the student's got to be the one to initiate and all that, what are your thoughts on what support resources students have to help them with this? Is this something that might be included in a warrior huddle, a guidance counselor discussion?
Absolutely.
Because it can, you know, especially for the younger students, it can be intimidating if everything's on them.
This has been a conversation with the school leadership or department heads and with administration, and they have then gone back to their individual departments, and we are revising our warrior huddle. We're naming ourselves as advisory because it's going to have a new look, so folks also thought that a new name would go along with that, and so that will be rolling out as we start next year. And we are going to be grade leveled, so 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And a part of what we want to do right at the beginning of next year is really have that conversation in huddles, in advisories, with the students at those various levels, and especially 9th graders, because yes, the onus is on them. That doesn't mean our teachers are saying, well, we're hands off, not by any means. I mean, it's a caring staff that we have, but having students really begin to take that initiative and to grow through that process. And so this will be part of what we'll be doing through September. And in our first days, there's always those highlighted pieces that we try to always go over with the students of what we want to make sure that we're kind of emphasizing for the year and for the beginning of the year. And anytime we make changes in the handbook, that is something that we do always bring forward to them and or highlight to them to say we know that this is there. And we have talked about that with students kind of in informal settings about, actually let me also back up. We just had a very interesting day. I know I'm going down another roadway, but bear with me for a moment. It was our MCAS Bio Day, where our 9th and 10th graders were both classes, for the majority of them, were engaged in taking the MCAS Bio because we are switching to a 9-10. And this was that year that we would have the majority of the students taking the exam. Our seniors were gone. What are we going to do with our juniors who are left? So guidance really did a wonderful job of putting together 2 days for us over the 2-day for the MCAS during that time frame, where our students rotated between actually 3 workshops on the one day and 3 workshops on the other day. And we did have in 2 people from college admissions to talk about the process, another to talk about the essay and really branding yourself and what that looks like. And we also brought in 2 of our former students, and so they spoke about what was freshman year like for me. What were those changes? I always ask about what was your aha moment? What was that thing that really kind of struck a bell? And we have heard this in the past, but they emphasized it with each one of the groups who heard it as they went through about that hard and fast that we do not. So here's where it's coming back around, where my teachers were a little bit kinder, and when a professor says that this is a due date, and here's your syllabus, here's your projects, here's whatever is due, and you get that in September, they're due on whatever those dates are that they have. You don't get it in, tough luck. And so they said for them, not that they were concerned about that, but that was an eye-opener. Like, they knew that they had a deadline date. So that was fabulous that was already an intro to our upcoming seniors, that they were hearing this. So that's the type of thing that we'll continue to talk about in the 9th grade and in the 10th grade next year as well.
I think that's
my long-winded answer.
No, it's a great answer, because it shows the kind of thoughtfulness, I think, that you and the leadership team put into policy change, that you're doing it for a reason, that, freshmen at college say that they don't get the leniency, so it'd be helpful if we train them in high school, get them used to that. But I also appreciate the way you answered my question initially, which was teachers will still support what the students need to be responsible for, that in the advisories they'll still get that counsel and that suggestion. And so I think that just shows that there's an intent to help support the change and the clarity.
Absolutely.
I just want to add in, Bruce, if you don't mind. I think the technology, the school email addresses, the Office 365, and I know some teachers are big on Edmodo, but my junior missed a lot of classes for music, for AP, for various reasons, and all of his teachers were so responsive, got right back to him. If he fell behind in something and it popped up on, Power School, he was able to right away send an email and get most of the time he got a response right back like that. And I think that is part of it. I mean, at least if they're initiating the email, then they're fulfilling their responsibility. And I have seen great responsiveness from the teachers. So.
And I do have to say, truly, the majority of our students are doing the right thing, and they are initiating, they are getting online, they are doing all of that. But sometimes we have that small minority of individuals that need more nurturing and need more nudging along the way for it. So sometimes when we speak, it sounds like it's collective and it's pervasive, when the reality is, again, most of our students are doing exactly what they should be doing and are doing quite well at it. But again, we just need to make sure that everything's in place and that everybody has that even playing field.
Would you like a vote tonight on policy changes approved for these additions, revisions for the handbook?
I would very much appreciate that, yes.
Why don't we just do these in...
Before we move on to that, I actually had one more revision I wanted to suggest to you, and it's just because I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we move on, the Appendix A, the Internet Acceptable Use Policy, the one that's in our current handbook is not our current policy. So I just wanted to make, since that wasn't listed on your revisions, I wanted to make sure I have a copy if you need it.
We do have a copy of it, thank you.
It's not the right one, so
and I would
it
have to
does need to be changed.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Tina. I would have to say that the policies were not something that were looked at because those are a fait complete. So what we do is we always take a look to make sure we've got the most updated version of those things that have already gone through. So thank you.
No,
so we didn't bring it forward because, again, that'll be this summer. We're looking, no, this one needs to be replaced.
Just wanted to make sure, because that one was approved in November of 2016, and it didn't make it in last year's handbook. So just in case it slipped through the cracks, Bevy and I spent a long time rewriting that
for 2016.
No, 2015. I misspoke.
Go.
It's on the so it's right here, November 16th,
so I noted it.
2015.
So you'll just replace it, so that
just replace
it reflects the updated.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So Diana, would it make sense to take this separately, maybe from Rich's stuff, just for
Yes, that would be great.
Any other questions about the National Art Honor Society or the attendance policy or the homework section revisions? How about a motion to
I'll motion that we adopt those for the high school handbook.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great, thank you, Diana.
Thank you, and just to let you know too, we're always making changes on wording and things like that, just for clarity. You know, sometimes you read something 100 times over. Debbie and I were just doing that this afternoon. And all of a sudden you see something that has been there. It's nothing of a change if we do make it. It's just to either bring about a slight clarity to something or to make a sentence grammatically correct. So just to let you know that, that's an ongoing thing that we do. But another piece, so Rich Cormier is also here. We've had pieces of athletics in the handbook, but never had the athletic handbook in our handbook, which is something that many schools do put the two together because it's so important. We have our co-curriculars in, we need to have more of our athletics in. So we're going to be adding to the bulk of our handbook, but it becomes that one document.
I actually think this is a great idea because we have more and more and more kids participating in athletics, so why not have everything in one place?
Absolutely.
I know,
As a
and cross
go-to
athletics,
reference
too. It's
guide.
not
So
just one
this is a
sport.
great idea. The more participation we have, the more necessary it is. So I think it's
So take it away, Mr. Cormier.
So that was really my goal. So as a new athletic director, I found myself looking in the handbook quite a bit, and I couldn't find things, or there were things that didn't exist. So my goal at this time was to not rewrite the handbook, but to kind of make it more user-friendly, to clarify or sort of delineate things, you know, for parents, for students, so that hopefully it makes a little bit more sense and also provides a resource for where people can find, you know, the appropriate information. You know, something simple such as eligibility was under co-curriculars and not under the athletic section. So we didn't change that per se, we just moved it. So I can go through this, but again, there's not a lot of significant changes. It's really more reorganization than anything. So the first page, I just wanted, for instance, to add the word handbook so that people knew this is sort of where they could go. Again, the sport offerings were 20 pages earlier. So it made more sense to put them here. Again, we do not have a JV hockey team or freshman softball team. So again, just to kind of have it as accurate. And there's definitely sports that do fluctuate based on numbers, but my understanding is we have not had either of those teams in some time. And then again, so you see right off the bat is the athletic eligibility piece, which really just took it from earlier and moved it here. One change that was in there is really more of a wording change than a significant policy change. And this was something that Diana and I had talked about really at the end of first quarter, trying to figure out who was eligible and who was not eligible to participate. So it was worded previously that you must have earned a minimum of 5 credits in major subjects or the equivalent of 5 major subjects. No one could really answer what that meant. And we also felt that any class that you take in school is important. So we really just took the word major out. So you're required to be enrolled in 6 subjects. And again, it says 6 major subjects. So the proposed change is really more of a rewording than a policy change in that it must not have 2 or more failing grades in any course.
Makes it clear.
So it's not about whether it's a major or the equivalent of a major. It's just if you're taking the course and if you're failing 2 or more classes, that means you need to be putting in more time academically. And it does say that incomplete grades are considered failing grades for the purpose of determining eligibility.
If the incomplete changes, then
they become eligible.
Okay.
And one of the things, and maybe we should add this, that we do as just sort of a functional policy is this comes out right before the start of winter sports. Spring is a little bit of a different situation, but for the end of first quarter, it's almost immediately before the start of winter sports. So any student that had an incomplete was allowed to try out. Because if we waited for that student to resolve the incomplete, they would have missed tryouts and it would be too late. So the understanding is that they would be allowed to try out, but if they, at that point, at the end of that, if they had not resolved their incomplete, then they would not be eligible.
Right. And we do have that once or twice,
Yes.
especially at that time.
And a lot of times it's medical issues. I mean,
Right.
you could end up with an incomplete simply because you were absent at a very inopportune time right at the end of the quarter. And we wouldn't want you to not be able to try out. The other things are not actually changes. That fall academic eligibility, that was just something that was in the handbook earlier. And again, we just wanted to clarify and have it nice and neat for people to find if they were looking for it.
Does that include 8th graders entering the high school?
So 8th graders on an MIAA rule have a clean slate.
Okay.
Assuming they've matriculated to freshman year.
Yep.
They start high school with a clean slate.
Okay, good.
That's great.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's great.
The attendance, again, just trying to make this a little bit more clear for people. So the current wording was must be in school for at least 5 consecutive blocks to participate in any co-curricular activities. So the new wording is just students must be in the classroom on time for the start of second block or not be dismissed until the conclusion of block 5. Again, the reason for that is we had plenty of students who, I was in the building, I was in the office, were you in class? It was very confusing to have a definitive line what is 5 consecutive periods. So this was really something that Diana decided that this would be the wording that we would go by, and then base it off of our attendance.
I would just suggest, in the interest of user-friendly and clarity, to put the time of day in there. You have the bell schedule in the handbook in a different location. So I mean, if the bell schedule changes, just change the times. But if I know my kid has to be in his classroom by 8:37 in the morning, that's what I'm going to tell him.
Right.
And if he's not in the classroom, that's just clear as a bell right there.
It is, but you know what? I think the kids know what time their periods start. So I think at some point, well, let's face it, they should.
They
so
should.
I don't have a problem with the way it is because, you know, what if, I always think like, what if you change the period by a minute and then you've got the time printed somewhere else in the handbook where you don't really need to other than the schedule. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
There's also adjustments on half days.
Right.
The
We
time-
do adjust things on
time
half
change.
days.
Pep rallies.
And the end of block 5, we certainly can add the time. It will get a little wordy because
Block
that's
5.
lunch.
And that's always it.
And
So
that-
it
and
depends
block
on when you
5
have
ends
lunch,
at
when
slightly
you've been
different
there for
times.
5 periods.
You've convinced me.
So it can get a little.
Yeah. We'd like the minutes to be that, but I'm thinking, wow, they're not really, sometimes they wiggle a little bit like that.
Not to belabor everything on wordsmithing, but I would just suggest on the first green line on this page, back up to must not have 2 or more failing grades in any course. When I read that, I thought you meant
Oh, I know what you mean.
one course, so I would suggest change the word any to in current courses or something like that.
Absolutely, I understand what you're
Know what I
saying.
mean?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
And then again, onto the next page. Again, a lot of this, if you look at the previous handbook, this information is all there, just in different places. Again, I'm trying to make it a little more user-friendly. One thing I did add was just, we held a preseason athletic night each season, so I just wanted people to know that this is an expectation. This is something that we will do each season. Again, general rules of participation, just, I kind of picked things from around the handbook and made it into one congruent section. Candidates will be given a minimum of 3 days of tryouts rather than just simply 3 days of tryouts. Some coaches, do give beyond 3 days of tryouts, particularly in the spring when
That's a
you
good
could
idea.
end up in the gym for much longer. If you're trying out for baseball and you're an outfielder, it's not going to be a ton that you can prove in 3 days. So
And it's the spring that we had this spring, or the spring that we had last spring, where you can't get them out into the fields.
down at the very bottom, the previous handbook said if a student athlete misses a game of practice due to a family vacation, she will be excluded. To be honest, this was just not, coaches were not holding to that. I think it was a little bit inconsistent from one coach to another, so just changing the word to may, leaving the coaches to have that ability, that discretion, that you have made a commitment to your athletic team. Because some coaches definitely would, felt bad and said, okay, whereas others were holding to that. So this just provides a little bit more coach to coach.
So is that something that they do have discretion on?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not an MIA rule
It's
or?
no.
Because I think, do you think that could cause problems though with, if you're in one sport with one coach, they're nicer, and if you're in another sport with another coach, they're not as nice? Like, I'm wondering if you should just give it some thought and decide one way or the other, either it does or doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I see Bill thinking about it too, but I don't know.
I mean, I'll just offer my observation that with a program like track where there are so many kids, I know the track coach would let my son participate in javelin, and it didn't, if he had missed a practice due to family vacation. But another sport like basketball where you've got a smaller participation and it's if you miss 2 practices or 3 practices over vacation, then you could be impacting your team. I think there's a difference.
By using the word may, if a athlete tells the coach while trying out that they have a family vacation, rather than after they make the team and a week before the vacation, the coach will treat it differently.
So this should be a no surprise rule, as long as the coach makes it clear ahead of time.
And-
This
and
is
again,
how I feel about that, and this is what will happen, then
And
we're
usually
good.
coaches do go over that in their expectations.
Oh, good.
And again, there's a difference between obviously a freshman sport versus a varsity, where this rule did not specify that prior. And also, and Tina mentioned this, didn't exactly say this, but some sports cut and some don't.
Right.
So that
That
does
too.
somewhat change the equation as well. So it
Right,
just
that's
provides a
good.
little
That was
bit
a
more
good example.
flexibility. On the next, on transportation, again, I just flipped this around. I feel it's important that if a student, for any reason, is not able to take the transportation home, that they should first speak with their coach. The previous policy is that they would speak to the athletic director. I think that's important communication that a student athlete should be having with their coach. You know, I can't take the bus home for X, Y, or Z. Is that okay? Then the parent or guardian will send me a note or an email so that I have it on file. But I really want that to be a coach decision with the student athlete. So that's all that is. Unsupervised use of school facilities, just adding that in just to really make it clear that even if you're coming into the school with great intentions to get a workout in, it needs to be supervised.
Before you leave this page, and I apologize for not sending you this early, but when we were reviewing it, your last sentence where it says any insurance claim should be given to the school nurse.
Yeah, see, that's the old wording. And
right. That actually has changed, and it should be, I've got a little paragraph here that you should add, but basically the way we would have it is recommended that all student athletes be covered by an adequate program of health insurance. Foxborough Public Schools has insurance coverage for all student athletes who are not covered by insurance, which covers claims that are not specifically covered by the student athlete's own insurance policy. Claim forms can be obtained at the office of the school business administrator in the central office. Okay. So I'll give you this, put that in, and then we'll bring that back up to the right, because we were having things that were happening, that were happening going into the nurses, and they were never coming out and being claims actually being processed. So
perfect, thank you. And I did actually notice that, and just didn't know if that was something that we did for any sort of liability reasons. But generally, I received the injury reports and passed them on. So,
got it.
The concussion information, I just specified. The old handbook had different ways of doing this. We've since updated how parents, coaches, and student athletes are trained in concussion. So the first sentence used to say annual training for coaches, parents, etc. But there are actually differences, so I just made it into 2 paragraphs. I added a whole section on impact testing. There was just no mention of it before, so just what our expectation is, which is that students will be tested as freshmen and as juniors. And then again, if, for instance, a sophomore who did not play sports as a freshman decides they want to play, then they would be tested as well. Theoretically, you would only be tested twice in your high school career, unless, of course, you sustain a head injury. So it was really just, many people, especially, this is relatively new, so people growing up have no idea what this is. And I was amazed, actually, at how many phone calls I received. I'm bringing my son up to impact testing. I have no idea what this is. So this hopefully just helps explain what the impact testing is, why we do it, and the benefits of it.
Just as a side note, I don't remember impact testing going on this early before the sports season. And I think it's great because it gets so busy when all the practices start in August and when school starts in September, and then the kids are trying to get their impact testing done and get to practice and catch up on their homework if they've missed something. So I think it's great both that you have started doing it now for the incoming freshmen and incoming juniors, and also I like that I can turn my athletic forms in early too. So thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, we're trying to have as much done. Really,
I like that.
I'm here all summer, but I know that's not the reality for most people. So the more information we have now, the better we can plan for the fall. The communication and conflict. Again, there's only one. I think only one change. The rest I just sort of numbered so that parents and students sort of know what order you should follow. Before it was just bullet pointed, and again, you could certainly reasonably assume that people would go in order of the bullet points, but this way I just numbered it instead. The one addition I did make was that really, in my opinion, similar to the makeup work, is that the first step in resolving any sort of issue that may arise would be the student athlete speaking with the coach, with the understanding that there are some situations where that is not appropriate. But if appropriate, the student athlete should initiate the conversation with their coach before the parent or guardian ever gets involved. So that's why the student athlete is number one. Code of conduct. Again, we did not have a procedure for removing a player from a team. So hopefully we don't need to do this, but there was no procedure in place. So we left it very simple because honestly, what could happen that may result in removal from a team can really run the gamut. And that's why number one says it does not need to be a gradual process. There could be one incident, and hopefully we never have this situation, but there could be an incident that requires immediate removal from a team. And also that the principal or his or her designee, myself, and or the coach all has the ability to remove a player from the team if we feel that it's necessary. Because there could be a situation, certainly, and I would obviously be addressing this in a different fashion, but where a coach really should remove a player from the team and doesn't, maybe for different reasons, and where Diana or myself could step in if need be. Again, the rules we had on chemical health and bona fide team rule were not updated ones, just as we're going through handbook updates. The MIAA does this every year as well. So all of that is just the most recent MIAA policies, just updated. Same thing with the sportsmanship rules as well, and what happens if you're disqualified from a game. Under awards, again, I took things from a lot of different places and tried to put the different, I guess, extras all in one place. And there was no mention or description of what it meant to be a varsity athlete. And this actually has come up because in some sports we have a very clear delineation. We have varsity, JV, and freshman, or at least varsity and JV. And in other sports we do not. We only offer varsity. So what does it mean for someone to achieve varsity status or achieve their varsity letter? So this was actually really difficult, trying to find some wording that really did genuinely apply to all the different sport offerings that we have while trying to maintain the integrity of varsity letter. You know, Bruce mentioned earlier that, you know, for some students, being in an honor society isn't that big of a deal anymore. Same is true of the varsity letter. So we still want that to be something that's important, but also have a policy that we can defend. Why one person might receive a varsity letter and not another. And one of the things that I encountered this year, and the coaches were all very well-meaning, but many had their own policies, particularly in sports that do not cut, on what constituted earning a varsity letter. And I just had a lot of problems with this. What happens if the coach leaves? Next year it's a new policy. There was really just no continuity on from one sport to another what constituted being a varsity athlete. So my hope is that this section does clarify that for all the different sports that we offer. For selections of captains, I just sort of re-emphasize that this is in season and out of season, that you're not only a captain and a leader during your season. This is really from the time that you are elected captain. Is that it?
Good.
Oh, and the last thing, again, we started this year, we had a college athlete breakfast. There's about 11 national letter signing days by the NCAA. And some sports have one, some sports do not. So if we honored those, I felt like we would be leaving some student athletes out. They also only have a national letter of intent if you're receiving a scholarship, which is limited to Division I and Division II athletes. And I think our student athletes that are committed to playing Division III athletics should also be recognized, as that's a huge accomplishment and a huge commitment that they're making. So this was kind of a way to make sure that everyone, whether they were playing Division I, II, or III, received some recognition for that accomplishment, and we did it all together. And we did it for the first time this year. We had a great turnout of parents. Sean McGuire from the Foxborough Reporter covered the event for us. We did it in the morning, hoping that more parents could maybe go into work late than to try to, you know, be here for 2:30. event. And also, many of those students had practice or games in the afternoon. So the morning and the breakfast seemed to work well. And again, putting it in the handbook, the reason I did that was my hope is that this will remove any sort of, well, why isn't my son or daughter doing a national letter of intent in November? We're going to do it here.
Pretty good.
And I think that's it.
Rich, one question about the varsity letter.
Yes.
I'm thinking about so many of our students that juggle multi-commitments in the school, music, academics, varsity sports.
Right.
Is there anything in here, I don't think I saw anything, but is there anything that would preclude the ability to earn a varsity letter because they have to miss a practice or have a conflict with something else? What are your thoughts on how we juggle that, right? The students that are doing a lot of different things and also trying to compete at the highest level, we wouldn't preclude that, I assume.
No. So this is not quite to your point, but if you look at Section B, it says student athletes must fulfill the commitment expectations of his or her coach to be considered in good standing. These expectations will be reviewed at the beginning of this season. So this speaks to making sure that you communicate, when you're going to miss something and making sure that it is a legitimate reason to miss. One of the things that I would propose, and I didn't propose it in here because I know Mr. Massey is obviously retiring and I thought it would make sense to work with his replacement, is having a sort of conflict schedule in what trumps what. So
great.
that if you have a practice for an athletic team but you have a dress rehearsal, which one do you go to? So that it kind of takes it out of the student's hands and it also doesn't force them to make a choice. And then the only place that there would be a choice is performance and game. And then they would have to make a choice.
I think those guidelines would be really helpful to everybody.
As a parent of an athlete and a musician, and Bruce too, I think I would find that very helpful, and so would my student. It's a tough row to hoe, I gotta tell you.
It is.
All good things, but it is a tough decision to make, and you're pulled in different directions.
I agree, and yet I would also commend the coaches and the music and the teachers that, what our experience has been, and we're not involved with every coach in every sport by any means, but has been that as long as there's communication between the student and the coach, or the student and the teacher, that everyone, I think, has had the right balance in mind. So. And I know you well enough to know that you'll continue to support that, and I think that's important because we do have a small community of students, and a lot of them do a lot of the things, and I think we want to support that type of student, so thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
Any other comments about the athletic policy?
I just want to say it's a tremendous amount of work. I really appreciate everything you did because I think this is very helpful to parents and to students. If you have a question, it's great to have all of it in one place where you can look it up and read it, and then if you have more questions, they can call you.
Exactly, yes.
But I know this was a lot of work just reading through it, so I really appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Clarification that needed to be done.
One comment. I think this is great. This really speaks to, I think, Rich's prior administrative experience, his attention to detail, and his commitment, because you've had a great first year. It's been a good year of sports, but this is really important work, and you are very attentive to detail, and I think we're all glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept and adopt the athletic program handbook.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Or nothing? Okay, I just want to add on to Tina and Debbie's comments for both Diana and Rich, because it's our end of the year meeting. But, so, and I try not to belabor this too much because I know we're running long, but, so much I think of what a public school system gets represented fairly or unfairly by the end product in the high school. And I think the two of you really exemplify what we are looking for in that end product. And I know you both work extremely hard. And as Debbie said, I think the outputs reflect your attention to detail and your commitment, and I just want you to know that we recognize it and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's a great job.
Thank you. We wish everybody a wonderful summer, too.
Yes.
By the way. Yes. We're still going full-blown, but
I know.
Sometime that'll come.
It's
but
a
again,
busy
thank you
day
very
today.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great.
Okay, I know we're running a little behind, but I really felt that all that detail was important, especially since one of our main jobs is to approve policy. So thank you, everybody, for taking time, and Apologies to those in the audience who are waiting to get to their item on the agenda. We're moving now to the new draft of the 2017-2020 strategic plan.
Yes, so we will try to expedite this since this is your first look at it, and the committee does have time in between now and our July goal-setting meeting for you to consider your feedback and give it to us, and you'll have a second look at it in July. So we know you can read, so I just want to publicly acknowledge the people that we had. As you know, this was our biggest strategic planning committee we have ever had, and what a great group to work with. So for administrators, Sue Abrams, Amy Burdos, Diana Myers-Pakla, myself, Mike Stanton, Bill Yukna. From the faculty, Jen Cronin, Karen Frazier, Diane McDonough, Shannon Wazlewski, many of you were here today. Parents, we have Monica Fizzler, Joe Rago, both from the IGO. We have Matt Griffin, who's from the Borough, Sadia Hussein, Leanne Orfanos, and Sam Stone. So many of the parents are here today as well. And school committee members, Chris Connolly and Marilyn Weiss. We've been actively working. We gave ourselves a timeline. We actually met the timeline because these are people who keep their nose down and keep going. So we have a strategic plan that has a few little nuanced changes and some things that you will recognize. So I think Amy, Bill, and I are going to share the summary, if you will, of the different sections. As always, we spent a lot of time parsing through every word in the vision and the mission, and we have some minor changes to the vision and the mission. And every word matters in the vision and mission. I guess that's what I want to say, because we're trying to be succinct, but you really want to communicate what we're trying to accomplish. We did not change the values of the district. That's something that would be a bigger job than the strategic planning, but we thought that they were still relevant. The one thing we did differently is a few of us had gone to Ed Leader 21's session on the profile of a graduate. And we, as administrative team, we looked at it one morning on Wednesday, and we picked the things that we thought the profile of a graduate should be defined in Foxborough. We ran it by the strategic planning committee. They agreed with many of it, but they had actually a great view on it, which is it's sort of stating what we already know, and why be redundant and act like it's a new thing. So they really said it really does describe our vision of a global citizen, and it really does describe our vision of a student that we graduate. So we decided to let the kids at the high school in the fall, I think this was our plan, to have them look at it and have students actually pick and choose among all the characteristics, and some of them are very nuanced, and create it. So that's what when we say image to be inserted here, it's going to basically look like this, because this is the end result, a graduate with the qualities inside the student's head. There's actually one down here, it says citizenship, but we need a different font color down there so it shows up. And we're going to actually let the kids have at it and say, what do you value? You know, do you pick the same things the adults are? And I bet that they would. And that we believe this does not only describe our ideal graduate, but also describes our global citizen that we've worked hard to incorporate this year. So that's the type of image. I won't say it's the exact image, but it's the type of image you should expect to see in the final plan.
Great.
Okay, Amy, objective 1.
Okay. So this really is looking at the academics piece here. So, so just for the folks at home, objective 1, to develop responsible global citizens by providing dynamic learning experiences within a rigorous curriculum that fosters high levels of achievement for all students. So what does that mean, and how do we carry out our goals and then strategies for those? We looked we went through a process where we looked at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. And based on all of that information, as well as a lot of data from achievement data to culture and climate, and really parsed out where did we see our opportunities. And we looked at, for instance, that first goal, improving the academic achievement of all students. In the past, that goal has been more narrowing the achievement gap and looking at a specific group. We're looking to improve the academic achievement of all students. So we wanted to make that more global with specific strategies that you see below that will then go towards meeting that goal. We still are looking at narrowing the achievement gap. The Department of Ed outlines that as a high needs group, which is our ELL population, our special education population, free and reduced lunch, looking at socioeconomic status. So there, but also using our data teams and continuing that work to target all of our students for growth, no matter where they are, and moving them forward. So that's why that goal is more broad. Looking at all of the supports that we offer through response to intervention, those are targeted supports with our reading specialist, our math specialist, how those supports are playing out for students, and looking at the outcome based on those supports that we're providing. And that also goes into the social emotional learning program. You'll see that in the next agenda item. It does impact student achievement. So how we're supporting the social emotional learning for students still goes back to that first goal. The second goal, increasing opportunities for science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, for all students. We looked at data for enrollment for our courses, for engineering, for computer science. We looked at gender gaps between males and females to be able to then come back and see, we have a lot of students graduating from, we just had graduation, students going into engineering, but they may not be taking the engineering course here at the high school or the exploring computer science. Why is that? So we want to explore the reasons for that and see if it has to do with schedules or something else. But at the same time, we also know that the engineering field for women is not the same as it is for men. So we wanted to target that as an area in STEM. The third goal, provide curricular opportunities and programs that inspire global awareness and build cultural competencies. In the last strategic plan, we had a piece in here that had to do with global awareness. Lots of conversations on what exactly does this mean, as Debbie was talking about the global citizen and coming up with a definition so we're clear. It comes to be many different competencies and how that plays out and what it looks like and how we measure that. So that's our big goal. Strategies that will really look at that is toward meeting that goal are some of the strategies you see below. Yes, promoting and appreciating cultural diversity and a value for differences, but at the same time expanding student access and exposure to problem solving with real world application. What that looks like in classrooms is what is the impact it's having around the globe, not just within the classroom. It's connecting to real world experiences, but it's the impact. We saw that through some of our students even presenting at MassQ and the global implications and the projects that they're working on. And then continuing to support the arts and humanities as key components to becoming a responsible global citizen. There are many strategies. Having to narrow it down to the ones that you see on this page were more broad, but yet still specific enough to go towards those three overarching goals.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So as you look across all the things, Amy, that your office is responsible for and all the programs, and I commented and commended you last meeting for so many things that you manage for us, but is there anything here that you say, wow, that's really going to be new, or wow, that's really a big change, or wow, that was a great idea? Or do you see this more as continuation of the themes we've been on? And I'm just curious.
I think expanding. So if we look at something like computer science, where we have the Exploring Computer Science course here at the high school now, with the digital technology standards that you heard about through the technology review, those have computer science standards as well. What does that look like at elementary and middle school? So we're looking at piloting opportunities as an elective for computer science beginning in 8th grade next year. But also when we look at, you'll hear about the science elementary adoption request, the engineering tasks that are there, it comes back to computer science and having students realize what is computer science. So I think those are some of the real concrete new pieces that we'll see that will end up going from elementary through high school, but specifics, what can we do as far as elective courses for computer science in the middle school? That's something we need to look at.
Make it more cohesive rather than say, well, we do this, we do X, Y, and Z. We know we have some gaps, so I think it'll be a more cohesive experience for kids as they go through.
And if we have more opportunities that are very strategic at the middle school, then how that plays out at the high school. We looked at things such as we have virtual high school, the number of students that are taking AP computer science over the last 2 years. Is that something that we need to offer here, because we would then have the enrollment to do that and to pull that away from VHS?
How many do we have taking AP computer
For the
science?
last,
Now I'm curious, and I know you've got that data.
The last
right
2
there.
years, we've had 5 taking the AP computer science.
So not quite enough for a full class.
Correct. But if we end up having a middle school program that feeds in, we then could.
Yeah. That's right. Interesting. Thank you.
But I think the cultural piece too, and looking at all of the global connections and what that looks like is another piece too.
That's going to look different.
Good, thank you.
So objective 2, I see some people here worked on objective 2, to continue to strengthen school culture, ensuring that students, staff, and parents and all stakeholders feel valued, safe, and have a voice. So our team definitely still liked that broad objective. And as Amy referenced, that I probably should have explained, we go through a pretty extensive process for the first half of our timeline, actually, on developing a situation assessment. Where are we right now? What do we know about ourselves? What information do we have about ourselves? And it's from there that we create our SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, where we have opportunities to do better, and what threatens our ability to make the progress we hope. So this group really felt that the objective should stay the same, and that the first goal, to continue to collect and analyze perception data annually about school culture and climate, is very important. As you know, we've been doing this a number of years. You as parents get it, staff gets it, students, middle and high school get that perception survey in the spring. We just are getting our results from this spring back. So you'll see us, as we usually do, we come back to school and we'll give you a very detailed response to reporting our results out very concisely. But that's really important. I don't think there's ever been a year that we haven't used something in that cultural climate survey, either at the principal level, the school level, the department level, certainly at the district level, that we've used that. So we could get perception data that looks pretty good, but if we know we can do better, we'll isolate that as something that we want to try to impact a little bit more positively. So I know you've heard those updates, and you should expect that again. So some of the strategies are obviously around the same thing. Within that culture and climate survey, there were questions about teachers collaborating together through professional learning communities or other means. And so this group really narrowed the use of those PLCs, professional learning communities, to promote more vertical articulation. We have a lot of cross-grade level and cross-department level collaboration going on now. We can never have enough, probably. But that group decided to specifically emphasize the vertical aspect of that articulation. So let's see. They want to continue to monitor and evaluate students for social emotional needs through guidance and mental health services. You're going to be hearing a lot more detail in a few minutes about that, so our social emotional program review. So I won't belabor that, but you'll see strategies like continuing to adjust based on what we know. I want to commend this group because they took on the one strategy that we weren't sure which it belonged under, and they bravely took on to develop and implement soft skills and social skills, which are communication, problem solving, listening, time management, organization, digital citizenship / social media skills at all grade levels. So we're becoming increasingly aware that we need to do more direct instruction and direct advancement of students in how they use these skills and what's their personal responsibility in doing so. And I think we can all think of examples where someone probably could use a little more of the development of their soft skills in the past year. So I want to commend that group for saying, no, it belongs here.
Well, and it's a very important, that has changed so much over the past, 10 years, definitely, but 30 years since I graduated from high school, there were so many distractions and so many differences in the way our children have to manage their time, and it's starting earlier and earlier, where they have many things that they're juggling, and oftentimes that my children will have their iPad, their phone, their computer monitor, the music, and the TV all on at the same time, and so it's a different world. It really is. So I appreciate that one being in this objective.
It really is a different world, and I think it's great that it belongs here because it's also a collaborative responsibility. It's a co-responsibility with parents. So you will see several strategies about family engagement. We certainly, I think, this year offered more than we ever have, workshops for parents at night or information sessions about social media, about items of concern. We've also offered parents to attend workshops on child sexual abuse, for anything that's going on in society now, especially around the development of soft skills and social skills. So we do definitely want to try to expand that around students' mental health needs and drug and alcohol awareness, such as the opioid crisis. And the more the merrier on social media, as we say. So that's a really important objective for the next 3 years, to continue to meet those goals. All right, objective 3, to enhance district infrastructure and technological capabilities to provide an increasingly safe and supportive physical and innovative academic school environment. So this objective has now, we've done so much work over the past several years. This, if you remind yourselves of maybe 2 plans ago, it was really all about rebuilding our infrastructure. It was about servers, it was about capacity, it was about redundancy, it was about backup, it was about email, and all of those things, luckily, have been achieved. So we have distilled this objective about infrastructure down to 2 things: to continue to assess safety and security measures in the school environment, to enhance safety across all school facilities and operations on an annual basis. So this is something that does need to be attended to annually because this changes all the time as well. And so we still have some work to do on that, identifying strategic locations, especially in the middle and high school where we may need additional security cameras. We want to review safety plans and procedures again with police and fire departments to look at just how we go about emergency response and get their professional input on how we can address those unexpected events. Under the direction of the building principals, review and revise as needed the current protocols and practices of the school-based emergency response teams, which they consist of the principal, the school nurse, teachers, and other staff members to ensure best practices. So these teams, we haven't talked about at this table, exist in every building. They have for decades. So if an emergency happens at a school, and it could be that somebody fainted in the hallway, the emergency response team activates, and they all have to have certain types of training, and they all know what they do, and they all know what area of the school they're responsible for or what they are. So it's time to take a look at that, and our principals, actually, Mike Stanton came up with that and said he'd really like to have us address those and take a fresh look at the training and the response for those teams. So let's see. We want to work with our public safety officials on how do we retrain and refresh staff members on what their expectations are for decision-making during emergency response. And as you know, that probably differs from situation to situation. Not surprisingly, we left complete the full campus at FHS because this is about the physical plant infrastructure. We still, someday, would like to complete the outdoor athletic and recreational facilities at Foxborough High School, specifically the 8-lane track, the bleachers, and the press box at the Sam Burns Community Field. So that will stay on. Hopefully by the end of this plan, 3 years from now, there's something in the works. And continue oversight of the Borough School Renovation and Addition Project to assure a safe, accessible, and stimulating educational environment. And we will be reporting on timelines and progress over the course of the year. Bill.
Objective 4, to maintain strong support of public education within the town of Foxborough. This has some similarities to the previous one, but has a couple major changes to it. Obviously, our first goal is always to be fiscally responsible. So continue to be fiscally responsible annually by reviewing per pupil expenditures compared to state averages while maintaining high levels of student achievement. Obviously, it's one of the things we're always benchmarked against is, what do we spend compared to what other districts do? How are we achieving, and what are our children achieving within what our budget, constraints are? That doesn't change much, and really our goals always there are, to get the best bang for our buck on it. As far as the second one, promote mutually beneficial partnerships with local businesses and community agencies as evidenced by continued and expanded initiatives and programs. This is kind of, we redrafted this a little because what we're really looking here for is to get the, to be a two-way street, not just a one-way street. And really that's, I think in our previous one, it was really what are others doing for us. But I think this has to be a combination if we're going to be successful in it, and it's got to be what have they done and what have we done with it to make it successful going out. Probably the most basic, obviously, is number 3, which is to maintain strong citizens and taxpayer support for education to ensure the approval of the annual budget and special budget request. Obviously, special budget request is capital improvement plans. And again, we also mirror in the borough project because for the financial aspects of that and how are we going to get the public to understand what that program is about. And then the final one, which really has most of our strategies against it, which is to develop and implement a streamlined, comprehensive communication plan that promotes Foxborough Public Schools to all stakeholders. This was really interesting because Matt, who couldn't be here tonight, one of his as a parent, one of his biggest things, and it was something we've talked at this table about in the past, is that we did not and do not have a consistent mode for parents once they enter from pre-K to kindergarten to understand what are the ways that they're going to be able to interact with us and what can they expect, or places they can look for student achievement or student requirements. And every teacher would use a different website or different Edmodal or some other product. And depending if your kid was in first grade, moving to second grade now, what's going to happen, am I going to change? Parents don't have time to understand all the changes that are going to happen every single year. So one of the biggest things that we thought would be critical, and it will serve two ways. It will serve in the sense of not only building a common platform as we move forward, but also in making sure that there's a voice by more than just the teachers and administrators, is to have a communications committee. And there's a couple things that can come out of that. Obviously, one of them is how do we get our message back to the town? And right now, we are very fractured in the way that we do that, in the sense that there are small groups within each school level that have a way of trying to get out something either on their website, potentially something into the paper. But if we at least had a committee that basically oversaw the entire district, we would have a way of putting out consistent messages and updates to parents, taxpayers, and so on. So we thought that would actually be a big change. I think to one of your points, is this a change or a comment? This would be a big change as far as how we do it. But the second part of it is something that we've also told you we're working on, and we're very close to. The town budget approved a common platform for a new website. That's going to make a huge change in having capabilities for people on all levels of our district to be able to use that website, again, to get back out to not just the parents, but also to taxpayers and people interested in looking up things. And I think obviously one of our biggest goals in the whole site is the transparency of our budgets and our process. And again, even that website, we believe, will be able to share and push out that information in a much more concise method, but much more available on a daily basis than what might be there today. And again, obviously, we always want to keep that intergenerational connection. And I think we've got some great programs right now with the seniors coming into the schools, and again, we want to continue to promote that, because again, I think that's a big understanding of how the schools continue to operate and change, if you will, over time. So again, some major changes in this area, but some that are going to be very, I think, hefty when you look at that communication committee and when you look at the design of a common communication platform, which I quite honestly think will take us a few years to be able to really come to grips with how we're going to do that the best, so that teachers on all levels can communicate with parents on all levels.
Questions for Bill or Debbie or Amy?
I'm interested in what the makeup of this communication committee might look like.
Well, I think, I think the group, as the small group that we had discussing it, basically it would be obviously administrators and teachers, but it has to have a parent involvement component to that, because if it doesn't, we're missing the point. I think one of the funniest things I got out of it, I don't know how Chris felt about this, but when when they started talking about, you use too many damn acronyms, ELA, you use this, stop saying because we don't know what they are. Speak English to us. And I just never thought about it, because we just use it all the time. So it's like, it was one acronym after another that they're like, I don't know.
It's like a foreign language.
Yeah, what do you do with it?
Like the military.
So it was very constant, or very consistent
made a pretty
message,
compelling argument.
that needed to be put out there.
I think this is exciting. I'll be very interested to see how this evolves over the next couple of years, but I'm confident that you guys will get something good done. I know communication is always an issue, and things are evolving and changing constantly, and I think I like this. I like it a lot.
I don't know if we have some parents and some staff members who are on. If you wanted to mention anything about your experience, feel free. You don't have to, but if you were on strategic planning, could you just raise your hand so you can be acknowledged?
Raise it up high. I was going to ask the same exact thing.
Oh, good.
I think it's outstanding that you guys came and sat through this, and so thank you for that. Thank you for your involvement, because we need to have more than the 5 of us involved. There are so many parents out there, and it's the success, I think, behind our schools. So thank you, and what a great piece of work.
It really is.
We always learn a lot through the process, always. So it was really great. Thank you all for the
Job
many
well done.
hours you put
Yes.
in.
It's not a small amount of work.
No, it's not.
No.
And the amount of paper that you look at, and the amount of data that you look, it's a stack like this
It is a
high to
stack.
get down to 4
It was a
pages,
stack.
so it's a ton of work, so thank you all.
Bill, just picking up on Tina's question on the communication committee, do you have ideas yet about how that would work structurally within the school department, or is that to come?
That's to come, I think. I think the administrative team will need to sit down and really kind of figure out, because it's also got to have some, meat in it as far as, what we can afford from a budget perspective on some of the modes of communications and things like that. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to develop it, but it's going to be one of our first strategies.
My reaction to it is what a great continuation of things that we started a while ago, but that are ready to be built upon. I mean, I remember us talking about building the annual report card, and now we call it the community update.
Community
and
report,
we
right.
we talked a lot years ago about marketing the school district and the good per pupil spend and the results we get out of it, and getting the messaging out. And we've talked about the website and communication. So that this is, I agree. I think this will be neat to see how
it'll pull it
this
all
will
together.
build and build on it.
Yes.
And I think to Deb's point, we couldn't have done this a couple years ago. We just didn't have the infrastructure to now push it. So now we are at that point where we've got the infrastructure in place. We have things like 365 in place that are up and running and working. So we have things we can build on with the new website. On top of that, we should now have the capability. Now it really should be, how are you going to manage that capability?
Yeah.
And I think that's what
true.
this committee is for.
We were talking about very basic things 5-6 years ago, very basic things. And now I think, hard work pays off. So we've built the foundation, the first couple floors, and we actually feel we have the luxury of really digging down to some of the things that are a little bit more finesse, but will make things much. This is definitely the next generation communication and advocacy for our schools. So I think it's a wonderful idea that their group came out with.
Chris, anything you want to add, having served on this? Thank you for doing that.
I think Bill covered my section.
Okay. So this is a draft, Debbie, or is this a final?
This is a draft because it's your plan. So we'd like you to take a look, think about it a little bit more, and let you hear the presentation. If there's anything specifically in it that you'd like us to think about or address, we'll go back and think about that. Our committee has it, and then you vote on it to adopt it or approve it, whichever word you pick, in July. So it's so important because it guides the direction of our district for the next 3 years. So we don't want it to be one meeting over and out. We want you to really think about it and see if it meets your needs in terms of the future direction, and then
well, on that note, anything that anybody saw missing, at least from an initial read, or anything that you want to provide feedback on? I don't think I saw anything either.
I didn't. I know I have worked on Objective 2 now twice on 2 different plans, and I wasn't sure if it was going to stay in this plan or if it was going to be changed. And I have to say I'm glad to see it in there and still in the same wording, because I know we worked really hard on that in the first plan, and then we went back and forth within the 2014 to 2017 plan about whether to change it, tweak it. And I still think, I like the goals and the strategies under Objective 2. I think they are a refresher, but that same underlying principle is so true and valid, that all students, staff, parents, and all stakeholders feel valued, safe, and have a voice, I think.
good job,
Very
Objective
meaningful.
2 people. Raise your hand if you're Objective 2.
Thank you, Objective 2. All the objectives are great, but that one is near and dear to my heart because I've worked on it twice.
The beauty of the process is we all work on our situation assessment together. We all work on the SWOT together, where we feel our strengths, and then we rest, and then we get into smaller groups around the objectives, and you take the pieces from the situation assessment and the SWOT that you need, and you work independently. So this group is people that actually, I don't think included an administrator. I'm trying to think. I don't think it did. So, or if it did, I can't remember who it was. But anyway, they work independently, and they go through all of their data that's pertinent to them and all the things that they've learned, and they come up with it. And so each of the groups actually function fairly independently, and then shared out with the group for comments and questions and a little bit of tweaking, and that was about it. So
great.
Fantastic.
We look forward to approving it, discussing it one more time, approving it next meeting.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everybody who worked on it. And you're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay for for the rest of our meeting. You're welcome to stay, too. But. Okay. Our next topic then is the SEL Social Emotional Learning Program Review Report.
Yes. So, the Social Emotional Learning, or SEL Program Review, if you recall, was something that we had thought would happen next year when we have the bump year, where we're not reviewing a content area. And Amy and I talked, we felt it was so important that we decided to do it this year. So, and we're glad we did, because it does fit, it does dovetail nicely with the new strategic plan draft and several other things that are going on. And we felt because it is about mental health and social emotional needs, it really can't wait a year for us to say, what could we do better? This is still the uncharted territory, I would say, when it comes to kids' needs. So we'll try to get through this. We have, look at all of our people in Social Emotional Program Review. Thank you for representing, they're all here. We formed and started meeting in the fall, and our goal was to review and assess pre-K to 12 guidance, counseling, and mental health programs and services to identify opportunities for program improvement in support of the academic achievement of all students. And if you recall, this is one of my superintendent's goals, so it ties to my evaluation, which we're going into later today. So we had regular and special education students, district level students, teachers, district level directors, and administrators. So we looked at a variety of things that you could read in the report. We collected information from as many resources as we could about service delivery, what models we're using, what are our opportunities, what data do we have, what data do we not have, and then we looked at current research to better understand the connection between social emotional learning and the impact on academics and kids' overall well-being. So I'd like to introduce our committee members, myself, Amy, Dr. Sandra Einsel, our Director of Special Education, Kim McDowell, our out-of-district coordinator who couldn't be here tonight, Diana Myers-Packler, high school principal, Sue Abrams, our middle school principal, Lorene White, our guidance director, and Michelle McCarthy, our borough school principal. We have classroom teachers, Kate Frassa, who's a special ed teacher at the Taylor School, Jen Light, elementary teacher at the Borough, Erica Spitz, elementary teacher at the IGO, Brita Annis, regular ed teacher at the Ahern, Lauren Goodman, guidance counselor at the Ahern, Holly Geffers, regular ed teacher at the high school, Ryan Walensky, special ed teacher at the high school. I think practically all of our teachers are here. So good representing on you people. You're the most frequently seen group. Wow. So I think we have all but one, perhaps. I'm thinking. That's great. Yep. One or two. Okay. So we went through and highlighted, so we're not going to read the report. I'm sure you. As you guys would say, if you'd like me to waive the reading, I'll waive the reading.
Thank you. I make a motion that waives the reading.
So we're going to actually try to focus on the highlights. The goal, I already stated what the goal was. The 6 main areas of the committee's work were best practice and research, curriculum, programs, and services, school-based services, mental health teams, policies, and procedures. In the report, we printed some of the overarching questions that we brainstormed at the very beginning, such as what programs we have in place, what measures do we use, what services are available, what services do we not have available, what is the role of the mental health team. And we asked the softer questions. What does the classroom teacher know about the services that are available, and do they know how to access them? And how do the teams who provide the services communicate back to families and parents and their colleagues, actually? So those were the kinds of questions we had at the beginning. The definition of social emotional learning, more for people watching at home, is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So that's the definition that we were operating under. I'll turn it over to Amy to summarize a couple of the key points of the research, and then we'll move on.
So we know from the literature and the research, and then all of the emphasis from the Department of Ed, that social emotional learning skills really are about being a good student and a good citizen, and having those skills because it's going to impact their academics. The Department of Education is working in this 2-year period with a collaborative, as far as it is CASEL, which stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And it's a 2-year collaborating states initiative. And That's why you see the definition of the Department of Ed here. That is what they have subscribed to, is what does that mean? They realize from district to district, it's going to look different based on what our needs are. So they want to make sure that they're establishing a common language, and that that common language really has a shared vision with positive outcomes for the emotional competencies for students. We currently have from the Department of Ed at the pre-K and K level, Massachusetts, we have standards for social emotional learning, and then for the overall grades, when you think elementary, middle, and high, we have from the Department of Ed a guide that tells us what do social emotional learning programs, what they should look like, how they should be implemented. And then with CASEL, going back to that collaborative, they really are working with states, knowing that states are different at the same time. How can they help states bring resources, expertise, research together? So the CASEL itself has these 5 competencies, which is really the framework for articulating what social emotional learning competencies are, and how that plays out within our curriculum. And in our curriculum, we have that guidelines. We have caring school communities. We have second step at the middle school. We have mental health curriculum. So one of those first groups was the curriculum. We looked at what are our strengths. And you have in the appendix where CASEL has gone through and they've evaluated based on 4 different characteristics for social emotional learning programs, and then the Department of Ed at the same time. So we're very much aligned with both. It looks at a curriculum that has freestanding lessons, so you're looking at teacher directed. You see that in caring school communities when they have those lessons with their classes. We have through guidance groups, guidance lessons that happen at the elementary. It looks different at the middle and high school with the health classes at the high school. So when we identified all of our areas for curriculum and what the strengths were, what we saw was it did go in line with what the Department of Ed is saying, what CASEL is deemed as far as really high quality programs that we have in place. And we felt really good about that as far as areas of curriculum strengths. And then crossing over between health class, looking at maybe topics that still are within the mental health, social emotional, when we think about darkness to light training. So we have so many areas that are really strengths for us, but we wanted to make sure that we're tying those together at the same time and we're not missing any between how they're delivered through freestanding lessons in classrooms, just the culture we create in classrooms and schools, and then really the integration of those skills in curriculum when it comes to other areas. So as an example, the Department of Ed has now outlined 2 different principles in ELA and math for curriculum that looks at social emotional skills such as perseverance when you think about math. What does that look like? Not giving up. When we think about perspective taking in English language arts and novel studies and taking on where's that character coming from, and empathy and how they may be feeling. So all of these social emotional learning skills and strategies really play out across all content areas, but Massachusetts is really looking at how can we better integrate that with following this framework with the 5 competencies. So curriculum itself, we felt strong, but we also had some needs that were there. Not only just making sure that we're crossing over, but that we have consistency. Caring School Communities has been in place for 7 years.
Probably. I want to say 7.
So having new teachers
7 or 8.
come on board, that's something we saw as kind of refresher trainings for teachers that are there. Some of the home side activities, because we know how important it is for the parent engagement piece and what that looks like, are those being used? If not, why not? How can we better incorporate those, because we do know the importance that they play. The guidance lessons, where they're really strong, looking at variety, where it looks different. We've talked a lot about student engagement here at this table. How do we engage students in those lessons, because they're very important, but in a variety of different ways, and what that looks like at elementary, middle, and high. So those are some curriculum needs. So some of our recommendations are then connected to those. How can we ensure that we're meeting all those competencies? In our Tier 1, Massachusetts looks at for all, for some, and for few. For all, that's our caring school communities, our second step, our health curriculum, all of those pieces for all students. For some is who needs more? That might be our lunch bunches and some of those more strategic groups. And then for the few, is really dependent on the student and students' needs. So how the curriculum changes there. So we want to look at that specifically as far as a recommendation. The other piece, the principles, these new guided principles that were just implemented by the Department of Ed this year, how that plays out, kind of the example I gave with looking at our novel studies and how those competencies, whether it's for perspective taking, empathy, how that looks like within our curriculum and our curriculum development, taking that into account. Same thing with math, how it plays out. And then another piece here was a new curriculum that is from our Sam Burns, and you have that at your table here. This is Gear Up to Lead curriculum. It's for middle and high school levels, and it's a curriculum that was based on Sam's documentary and his TEDx talk as well, and his philosophy for a happy life. It's 4 units, it's 12 lessons, but more importantly, it really is looking at change students' thinking about leading and about success, motivation, motivating students to really believe in themselves, and then teach students the value of making mistakes. That's that growth mindset and the importance that we learn from our mistakes, and then really empowering students to take on challenges, resulting in higher achievement for all.
They're all great lessons for everybody, and certainly things that Sam evidenced every day of his life. So it's a program for middle and high school. So it just came out in April. So we've been working with them. It's
Who produced it?
The Progeria Research Foundation.
Awesome. I got this flyer in the mail from the Progeria Research Foundation.
Right.
You know, in April.
Right.
And I said, oh, I hope we do this. And before I could even bring it up to you, here we are at this table.
Of course we would. So we're going to look and see, it's 12 lessons, so we're going to look and see, it could be part of the student advisory at the high school, which is, because it's so many, it was actually Holly's idea, so we could look into that for the high school, because so much of it is that advisory, like who are developing you as responsible people and citizens, and how you should look upon your life and adversity, and the power of making mistakes, as it will be, and we'll look at that the same at the middle school. We haven't really had time to say where it's going to be, but that was certainly an easy decision, and how lovely it came out as we're wrapping up our social emotional program.
Yeah,
it was
synchronicity.
So,
Chris,
Castle is the organization that partnered with the state for the survey, correct? For the student survey on the MCAS.
I don't know.
On social emotional. There was a 40-question survey.
I remember the survey and the questions as far as it being Castle exactly.
Yeah.
Them being the organization, I would have to go back to look.
Okay, I believe I was told before that it was.
I'm not sure.
How is the data that they received from there going to change this, if at all?
The data
that they received from the surveys.
I don't know, because the resources that Castle has, if anybody's interested in social emotional learning, they are the biggest warehouse of information, resources, advice, articles, research on social emotional learning. So people out there watching CASEL, just Google it in all caps, would do it. Our review was not about the questions at the end of MCAS or what's happening with that. If they are the service providers that do that, I don't know what the plans are for that. Barring that, they have a host of resources. All of our committee has had time to look through it, and they just have a wealth of information about. They are the biggest powerhouse of wealth of information for social emotional learning, especially as it impacts students' achievement and their well-being. So I don't know, because that wasn't part of our review.
Okay, I just think that if they had the surveys and we could get the answers for how the students in Foxborough did, it could help.
I wonder if they have it set up. That's a good question. I wonder if they have it set up so you can even, most of the time they do that, it's not set up to get individual district results.
Just
but I
the
don't
whole
know that either.
statewide?
Right.
Well, I don't, yeah, but
Okay.
you know what, I'm not sure, so I think that's a good question to ask them.
Okay.
Because it could help us to know because we do ask the kids some questions in our culture survey around this area, but not as comprehensive as we'd probably like to. So that's a good lead to follow.
I know that I saw the questions, at least for the 8th grade one, and they
Yes.
were They were pretty extensive.
Yes. So if that's, and I think we know I had a discussion, it seems to be much more comprehensive than what we collected. So if we could, I haven't looked into that yet, that would be very valuable for us to know what the kids are saying.
Great idea.
So let's follow that lead. We'll make a note of that. So Amy already pretty much summarized the curriculum. The second group was my group, and Via's and Michelle's, who are all here. Programs and assessments, I won't review, but you can see that we outlined what are tier 1, 2, and 3, and I think Amy said it even better. It's for all students, for some students, and for a few. And what do we currently do? Most of the kids who get those intensive supports in tier 3 are students who have it on their individual education program plan, and so it's not a surprise. Kids who need something a little more intensive, people would know. So what we came up with after looking at what programs we have, and we spent more time looking at assessments. So the bottom line is that we're very happy with the fact that we have a lot of tier 1 programs, K-8, which are more or less prevention. You know, if we get the kids in a certain shape, we're going to prevent future difficulty. We don't feel it's necessary to have such a program, a tier 1 at the high school, because by then we should have developed them as citizens, and they just have to carry it out for 4 years and get out of here whole, so to speak, with a lot of good social skills. One thing, though, that we did know is that we collect a lot of data. Our mental health team collects data, teachers collect data, we collect data. But it's not enough, and it's not under the guise of how do we identify kids at risk for the social emotional needs. And so we know that we have a lot of data that informally we can put together to form a picture, but what we're really lacking is a universal screening tool. Years ago, when I was the assistant superintendent, we started our RTI approach. We did use a checklist that we liked at the time. There wasn't much else out there, and but our intention was to say we need something a little bit more robust. So we want a universal screening tool, and by that we mean it'll identify students who may have social emotional needs. So if you can liken it to literacy or math, we have all kinds of assessments, and we look at, are you at risk for needing some reading support? Are you at risk for needing math support? And how do we know? And do our assessments give us a clearer picture of who may need a little bit more diagnostic attention, so to speak? So we definitely are strongly recommending that the district adopts and implements a research-based universal screening tool for social emotional learning. And one really strong example we saw is the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment. This does really identify where students have strengths in these areas, and it points out where they could use a little bit more development. It is a research-based, it's a tool of measures of behavior that are related to things that we know are important to student development, such as resilience, social emotional competence, and school success. So it sort of falls under those 3 general categories, if you will. And then if we can use that with our younger kids, and then maybe go back to what Amy mentioned, the pre-K, the Department of Ed's pre-K social emotional learning standards, use that, develop some type of really informal tool for our preschoolers. And then we'd like, at Foxborough High School, we need to develop a more formalized process for collecting, recording, and tracking data around students' SEL needs and monitoring ongoing progress. And we'd like to really look at that in the fall. So it wouldn't be a formalized tool, but it needs to be a formalized process. So that's what we're recommending for that.
Who would do that work?
Oh, Diana and the guidance director and actually we really need to we have mental health teams in place at all 3 levels. We have an elementary, a middle, and a high mental health team. So it really would be our high school mental health team under the direction and guidance of Laureen and Diana, that we need to put together some guidelines and not assume that when there's an issue and we're collecting data, how do we collect it, how do we communicate it? We need a more formalized, whether you want to call it a protocol or guidelines or process. We almost need, I see Lauren as a middle school counselor, we need more flow charts. If we want you to do this first, then we want you to go here, then we want you to do that. So that that what we expect to happen is a little bit more clear and understood, and then it will be easier to follow, because, school days are busy. Yeah. So
that's why I asked.
Yes, it's quite busy. So we're looking forward to working with them on that in the fall. So I'll put my name in there too, Diana. All right, school-based services.
So school-based services, one of the things to keep in mind when we were involved in this review, we did surveys for teachers, electronic surveys, but we also conducted focus groups for mental health teams, for classroom teachers across all levels. And the members, those that you see sitting out there, ran those focus groups to be able to get that qualitative data back. And so that really played out in some of the school-based services. When we looked at some of our strengths here, we have many different services and supports for students in place, such as social skills groups, lunch groups. Teachers feel comfortable reaching out to guidance counselors and drawing upon their expertise to help them with their students in the classroom, and really looking at them as that partner, as well as outside community agencies that guidance counselors work with, and again, working back with the classroom teacher. As far as within the classroom, teachers are implementing different strategies that would go towards those 5 competencies when we think about things such as self-awareness and being able, mindfulness being an example, and how to teach students some skills for anxiousness. And these are things that we're seeing more and more of. We've talked about that here at this table. So what can we do? What can teachers do, whether it's movement in a class? Some even kind of yoga kinds of things in class to be able de-escalation if someone is starting to feel anxious. That's just, you know, one small example. Across the board, teachers really felt that administration listens and is supportive, that's there. But where we did see some needs was that around the area of communication, just wanting to know more. What's going on with maybe a group that's outside my classroom, or even the guidance groups, how I can better support that as the classroom teacher and feel as though I have the strategies and skills to do that efficiently and effectively. In the area of professional development, providing professional development for supporting students who have anxiety or attentional issues in the classroom. When we talk about all of those devices and the soft skills, right? What are things that we can do and incorporate in our classroom instruction, our classroom culture environment to better support students and to give them those self-management, decision-making competencies that are there through CASEL. But a lot of it came back to communication, and at the same time, keeping with confidentiality. What are some things guidance counselors might have privy to based on outside agencies, or things that they're privy to that are not with the classroom teacher, but what can they share that's going to make me more effective in my classroom with my students? We have some of those professional development workshops that will be taking place. They have taken place this year. We've run the trauma courses. We ran 3 trauma courses this year to be more of a trauma-sensitive school system, and are continuing with that. So that's been very popular. But again, it's not one of those where it's a quick fix. It's an ongoing strategy, if you will, that we need to continue. But the communication piece to make sure that everyone understands that who's working on what and how we could best support those efforts.
As far as see that theme of communication coming up across this report.
And as far as recommendations, it goes back to the communication, but at the same time, looking at what's in place. How can we maximize and leverage programs and services that are in place so we're more effective, we're more efficient, with kind of revamping some of our times that we have. We're always looking for more time, so let's take the time that we do have and use it to the best that we can.
So the next section, mental health teams. The good news is we have mental health teams at all 3 levels. The great news is we have great people. And the even better news is they do a great job. But what we discovered through our focus groups, primarily with actually meeting with the mental health teams, is that they actually had widely varying explanations, if you will, about what their role was and their responsibilities and how they went along. And that's because we've never really gotten together and said, this is what the mental health teams do, and these are the roles and these are the responsibilities that we expect. So because we have good people, it hasn't been a problem, but it really came up in this that they would like that clarity. So we need to provide clarity of their role, not only to the mental health team, but then to staff and parents, because there is some, like, oh, does the mental health team do that? I wasn't sure. You know, so that is definitely needed. They do use data and documentation, but how they use it and how it's communicated, we want to work a little bit more on that. Consistency in forms that they use, the actual forms they use, the process and the procedures at all 3 levels. So, and just like you heard in the other review, we need that vertical articulation. So can the 3 teams sometimes get together and say, well, this is how I do it, and let's go back to that. So I think I did that. They also wanted us to research tools for screening social emotional learning skill deficits, which I've already talked about, and then back to the communication among regular ed and mental health teams and all of that, which takes us right into policies and procedures. And Amy's going to summarize for you, but again, you see that all over the place. So when it comes to communicating, we realize that a lot of it are those protocols for who talks to whom and about what, and what can you share and how, and what's advisable and what's ideal versus less than ideal. So you'll see, as Amy summarizes policies and procedures, is carried right over into developing a standard procedure for reporting concerns, tracking response, and communicating with parents. Because all of that isn't necessarily within the mental health teams, or certainly they're not the only ones solely responsible for that. It's general guidance, it's administration, so we would like some guidance so that somebody has something to refer back to about that. So I'll let you summarize, and then I think we're just about wrapping up.
So there is redundancy, but some of the key points really here are that we goes back to, we do have a lot of data. We track a lot of things. We have the confidence in our teachers and our guidance staff to meet the needs of our students when we think about social emotional learning. But at the same time, if we can have it a little bit more clearly mapped out, communication again. So we have some recommendations for developing flowcharts, if you will, some if-then. So that way, if you have new staff that are on board or people that are in it, a different, sometimes people move from building to building, what that process is. What does it look like for who do I go to? Is this a mental health team question? Is this guidance? And then making sure that the communication is there. So some of the documents that we have listed here for recommendations or flowcharts, it's really kind of outlining what we do. So it's on paper, it's clear, and people have a place to go back to say, okay, I'm not really sure. Should I go to my principal here? Should I go to the guidance counselor here? What's the flow here? And so that it's really clearly laid out. And then at the same time, communication when we look at between mental health teams, staff, and parents. What are some things that we can do so the communication's clear and that nothing falls between the cracks, if you will? And I think that's it. It really comes to communication and clearly noting
Comments
what we
from
do.
any part of our team or additions or
what did we forget?
Yeah.
Seems like you guys did a ton of work.
Clearly.
I have a question. The policies and procedures page, sorry, that's great. I mean, as a teacher, I wish I had this type of stuff, the flow chart, all that stuff. My question, and I don't know if this is right for tonight or some other time, social emotional issues have been growing a lot the last 6-7 years.
It's true.
And when I was looking at the budget, the elementary schools each have one guidance counselor.
Yep.
Have you looked at expanding that?
Yes.
My
I
school
think,
has
was it,
3.5.
Was it two? Was it two? I'm sorry. What was the last comment? I missed it.
The school that I teach at, we have 3.5 guidance counselors.
Well, you're at a middle school, am I right?
Yeah.
And they have
K through 8. So it's a smaller.
Well, they have 3 at the middle school as well. So I think we mentioned this a couple of meetings ago. Where we know we're short is the IGO school, which is bigger than the other 2. And we are still trying to see if we can, we call it reallocating our human resources. We're trying to figure out what else we can do without to have another half of person at the IGO. So IGO really needs 1.5 counselors. And then the smaller schools are fine with 1. So if we could have a total of 3.5 at the elementary level, that'd be great. Middle school has 3. I think, and they have 1.5 school psychologists, which is part of the team, and they have a social worker. So they're pretty much fully equipped, I would say. Would you, Sue?
The school I was most referring to was the IGO.
The IGO. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I'm answering that. So we definitely know we need it. This, as you know, wasn't the year for adding any positions, so we did not. But we are looking at that. Sandra and I have had some conversations about what we can hopefully do without, and we're still working on that, but it's looking promising. I'll have an update for you at the July retreat. But that is something we hope to accomplish by the fall.
Okay.
So thank you for asking
Well,
and for supporting it.
Well, I agree with Chris, and it would be great. I would personally like to see that happen at the IGO. We have come a long way with these positions, and when my kids started in elementary school, I think there was one for all 3 elementaries, one guidance counselor.
A long time ago.
Who traveled between all 3, you know,
That's
a day
then
here,
10
a day
years
there.
ago when I came back,
Yeah.
the Burrell and the Taylor shared one. So, I mean, I know Michelle is still here. I used to say, well, what happens if a kid has a meltdown on Friday? And
Yeah.
they're at all the way across town. Like, we can't plan
Right.
when a student's going to be in crisis. So I would say because of the support of this committee in this area, we made a lot of progress. But that's our last, that's our last niche that we're working really hard on.
But does giving the teachers more support and more resources and more professional development, does that help
Yes.
with that challenge of we can't staff to as many as we'd love to have? And
Well, I think we're pretty well staffed. If we can get that extra 5 at IGO, or the 0.5, I think we're in really good shape. For a district our size, I would say we have we're looking at something at the high school. We've been discussing whether one social worker, given the fact that they also work with the team-based program and the therapeutic programs, which are, at that level, quite needy. So that's another thing that's on the back burner, I will say. We're trying to solve the IGO problem first, because that's strictly a caseload problem, which is, pretty easy to understand and want to address. So those are the 2 things, but other than that, I would put our team in numbers, in organization and structure, and never mind in people, up against anybody's of a similar size district. But we need to fix that and maybe fix a little problem at the IGO and maybe a little problem at the high school. But again, I feel like it's, I don't want to say luxury because that sounds too much. It's a gift to be able to sit here with the progress we've made and really talk about where do we still have small needs that will make a difference.
It's fine-tuning a process
is.
that we didn't have the process.
No.
So now we're fine-tuning it, and it's
Right.
fantastic.
But I thought this thing is great, especially like the streamlined and part and the policies and procedures.
That'll be great. So a lot of it does come down with how we do business. It's not that we have miles to go, if you will. I don't think we have miles to go at all. It's really us saying, this is what would make our lives better. And I think the beauty of our team is we had people like Ryan who were in special ed saying, this is how we deal with this in special ed, but what would I need more? Because, obviously there's a lot of the kids that you would see, have some needs in that area. And then we have regular classroom teachers like Brita, and I see Holly saying, this is how my life works when there's a student I don't understand, that I see something that I'm concerned about but not sure what I'm supposed to do about it or where to go. A lot of what's happened depends on relationships, and we want it to depend more on our protocols. And then we have people like Lauren, part of our mental health teams, and our administrators saying, this is what we believe is happening, but it could be a lot better if we just articulated it a little more. So I think that'll be pretty powerful.
I'd say as a parent, I agree with Chris. Chris gave the teacher perspective. As a parent, seeing the policies and procedures and the implementation of a flow chart and giving teachers more guidance on how to handle it. I mean, teachers are with our kids for 6.5, 7 hours a day. And they see things that as parents we don't always see. The interaction with other students and the way they act in the classroom might not be the same way they act when they come home, or they might go into their room and not talk to you. So to help teachers help students is just, and help teachers help parents help their kids is just phenomenal. I am so impressed with the work product that's in this report.
And on top of that, what strikes me is this isn't just about the students who have IEPs, but it's about all students. And I think all students have social needs.
Yes.
And I really appreciated the couple of times in here it talks about the teachers wanting more information. How do I help how do I help support, how do I help prepare, how do I help address, so.
Yeah. That's a good point. This is for all students.
Right.
And all students have needs in that area. You know, that's why they're in school. They're growing in their social competence as well as they are in their math competence and all their other competencies. But, you know, even if you're a parent who says, well, it's not really mostly about, it could be your child next week.
Absolutely.
You don't know when a crisis is going to happen. So, you know, or something is going to happen either in the family or with that child, or, you know, on the weekend, or at somebody's home or something that doesn't say, oh, now I'm going to need to partner with the schools. I need help with this. So that's the point. And this is so important because it goes across everything. It's not just, this is what we're going to do when your child's in math class and needs a little help. This permeates every aspect of what we do.
Well, I know I speak on behalf of all the committee members when I say it's a great piece of work, and thank you. Thank you to all of you, both for staying late tonight and being part of this, because it shows us your commitment to this, but also all the work you put into producing the report. It's excellent.
We never lack for volunteers from our professional staff for any of these committees' work. We never, ever do, because it's their work, and they contribute to it. They help us make decisions to make their lives as professionals better too, but we never suffer from a lot. We have to turn people away. So we never have that problem where not enough people want to get on board and put in the hours.
Well,
and the
don't
work.
say that. The volunteer level will drop off if you say that.
I don't think it will. I really don't, because they are listened to. They do have an important role, and the outcomes should make it better for kids and for them, hopefully. That's the whole idea. And I also don't know any other district that did a social emotional program review. Sometimes we're speaking another language when we go other places, and we're like, well, we're in social emotional program review. It's like, really? Yes, we're trying to be very, very thoughtful about how we support kids' needs as people.
It's great work. Thank you.
Kudos to you guys. You're an awesome team. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Nice job. I'm going to clap for you.
Yay.
Very thoughtful people. I will say, it's unlikely that we would choose to do strategic planning and social emotional program review at the same time again.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
That was a churn. I'll just say that.
Where is Ms. Allison Mello?
Feel guilty leaving her, but it's okay, Michelle.
Elementary Science Program Adoption.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very exciting.
Exactly.
And I'm still very excited. Even though it's later, I'm still excited. So happy to tell you about this.
All right.
So thanks for having me. I will not talk at length about this. I think the slides will do a great job of telling this story, so hopefully people at home can see those slides. I wanted to start by talking about what brings us here this evening, because you may remember that in 2011 we adopted the Sangari Active Science program for our elementary students after a program review. And that was a great thing for us, and we came here equally excited to talk about that, because that marked a huge shift in our instruction in science, from sort of reading about science and writing about science to actually engaging in active science. Kids doing experiments. We've had students come and talk to this committee about experiments that they have done. I remember Debbie asking a second grader about their viscosity of the thing that they did, and they were able to speak about it. I was sitting here, it was great. It also helped us create consistency across the district in our science curriculum, so that was wonderful. Since that time, you'll remember clearly that in 2012, the Massachusetts Department of Education adopted their own version of the Common Core State Standards, which resulted in our revised Mass curriculum frameworks. Those have clearly articulated expectations for content literacy standards and real-world application of math. And after that, in 2013, the Next Generation Science Standards were released. And that was sort of the modeled after the Common Core Standards to say, okay, we're going to have these national science standards. But as we know, Massachusetts has very high standards for themselves. So when that happened, Massachusetts tweaked them a little and released a draft in 2013. That draft was not as well received as they had hoped when they opened it for public comment and opened it for teachers. And a lot of the feedback, I remember participating in that process, was in Massachusetts, we really wanted grade level specific standards, because it was really hard to articulate and be consistent with these grade level bands. As you probably recall, our 5th grade MCAS in science is 3, 4, and 5, and then we have the 8th grade, and that was reflective of the way the frameworks were written. So they started a revision of that process in 2013, and I think we've talked at this committee a couple times about the frustration of waiting for the outcome of that revision. So in 2015, we had our science curriculum review, and at that time, Massachusetts still had not adopted the new revised curriculum standards, which left us in a very gray area. And we had a lot of outcomes of that needed to be addressed immediately because they were so pressing. But we opted to hold off on the elementary until we actually had more clarity on these grade level specific standards. So that brings us to 2016, actually last April, took a long time. Massachusetts finally did adopt their revised, they still call them STE. That's actually one of the differences between the NGSS and Massachusetts. The mathematics is not as clearly articulated as a cross-cutting concept, although we feel it's very important here in Foxborough, so we will be focusing on STEM. With those standards came more focus on coherence. So you'll see in the document that's in your packet, and I will put it on the screen for the people at home in a moment, that there is a very clear progression of concepts that are represented in every grade. Before, there would be big gaps for 3 or 4 years where you wouldn't touch a concept, and then kids would have to remember it from way back. So that's a really good improvement. There's also a focus on connections and applications, so that idea of STEM and integrating literacy and math with science. And then obviously there's a huge focus on career readiness. That was one of the big outcomes of the adoption. So here we are in 2017, presenting you with the program that we think best meets the new revised expectations that the standards have brought forth to us. We did look at 3 programs. We tried, we didn't really do a formal pilot. We've been playing around with them, but this one rose to the top, and you'll see why in a moment. This document just sort of outlines, just so that you can see a side-by-side comparison of where we were with Sangari Active Science. And again, that was 2011, and a lot has changed since then. The topics that we have, I noticed I made one error on the kindergarten one. We do living things, so plants and animals technically are included in Sangari. But where you see things in capitals, those are changes to the content that we were not covering before. So when you jump down to first grade, you can see there is a pretty significant amount of content that is now being expected to be covered in every grade. And if you notice things like waves and energy, they're all over the standards. That's completely new. That was never there anywhere. So we're focusing on a lot of professional development for teachers for that. One thing I do want to call your attention to is in grade 4, the blue circle, those are our former units for Sangari, and none of that content is now what they're expected to teach. So we knew we needed to find an alternative. We were really hoping that we could salvage some of what still works for Sangari, and that is our plan. Where it is still effective, we'll keep it, because why put teachers on a learning curve where they don't need to be? But this program does an excellent job, and I think what teachers are going to find once they start to utilize it is that perhaps the lessons in here in this new program, Inspire, for weather might be better than what they had, and then they'll just move on to a full adoption. But I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on them for that. So one of the best things that teachers love this program. They were, and it wasn't every teacher who sat on the committee, as I'm sure you know, but we have had samples set up in each building, and we just had grade level meetings with every grade, and we talked about them, and they're very excited about what the program has. So the Be a Scientist notebook is a consumable. It's a problem-solving activity book that has all of their experiments. It has writing, it has vocabulary, it has assessment components in it, and it's really great because I love that it says it takes kids on scientific journeys, because that is really what they're going to be on.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. This program, as I was putting this together, I was getting dorkily excited about how cool this is going to be. Dorkily. I made up my own word. I make up my own words. I do numbers.
I approve.
Thank you. So the hands-on activities were extremely important to us. So we looked at Discovery Tech Book, which a lot of our colleagues in neighboring districts use. And while it's great because it's digital, we felt we lost a lot of the hands-on components. A lot of it was virtual. We really didn't want to take a step backwards, because that's a place where we feel like we made a positive change. So the best thing is they are simple materials that we can get at the grocery store, and they really engage kids in using their math and their content literacy all in one nice, neat package. And I heard you just talk about guiding principles for other standards. The guiding principles that came along with these science standards and frameworks, I've tried to include them wherever I can here. So this guiding principle for rigor, all about investigation, experimentation, design, and kids actually using their analytical problem solving. then they're saying that all these things are central to an effective science and tech and engineering program. This is just an example of one of the activities that is included. And you'll see the materials are all listed, which I love, and they have to wear their safety goggles so they really feel like scientists. I love that this is taking elementary students really into what really happens in a lab. There are trials. You do things more than once. You use your math then to figure out what's the average. You plot it on a graph so that you can see what it looks like, what's happening here, and then you can interpret your data and analyze it. They're going to be using science tools like graduated cylinders and learning how to measure. We weren't really doing that at that level in the elementary school before. So it has upped the ante for including things like measurement in a way that's more authentic. And that's actually been one of our weakest math strands. So I'm excited about that as well. We talk a lot about 21st century skills, so guiding principle is an effective science and tech engineering program provides opportunities for students to collaborate in scientific and technological endeavors and communicate their ideas. This program is written to do that. So kids will be working together cooperatively to develop solutions. There's a whole engineering strand woven throughout. And the idea is that you communicate your findings with solutions and evidence from what you did. So that really, again, goes back to what they're doing in ELA. Find the evidence in the text, make an argument. We have to make an argument in math now. It's really nice overlap between the content areas. These little people, they're called the career kids, and they are all through the program in every grade level. Do I have sound? Excellent. I just want to show you, this is a 38-second video that I thought was worth us looking at.
Wow! Do you see that shower of sparks? That means a welder is hard at work fixing or creating something. I'm Hannah, and I want to be a welder when I grow up, just like my dad. One of the tools a welder uses is a blowtorch. A blowtorch produces a very hot flame that can be used to mold and cut metal. The sparks you see are actually pieces of molten metal that spin off during cutting and welding. My dad works to build and repair ships. Without people like my dad, things like skyscrapers, cars, and rockets would not exist.
It's pretty cool. And they have those in the ConnectEd digital platform for every topic that kids explore. So you could go on YouTube and you could watch all of these videos. Some of the careers I didn't even know existed, and I think that's the point. I just read an article, a research article about a month ago that said we should start exposing kids to career choices at the age of 3. So we should really be focusing on it in preschool to get them attuned to why they're learning what they're learning. It was one study, but I read it. Okay, now I'm
Don't reread it, please. It's summer and it's time for the beach.
It is. I agree. You could be a lifeguard. You could be an oceanographer. Well, here are more of the career kids, and you can see they have everything from video game designer to carpenter, paramedics, sound engineers. There's a lot of cool things in here. Assessment is a really important piece of science instruction. We have recently put in common assessments to try to feel, our science assessment was very informal up until a couple of years ago. And we really just started to say, okay, common assessments, what's the expectation? What should kids be able to do and report to us on their science learning, and how reflective can they be? We don't have to create these because they're already here. And what I love about them is that they are performance tasks. I believe strongly that in science, kids should demonstrate their understanding through some kind of performance task. And look, it puts them in the role of a career. Be an automotive engineer and perform tests on a toy car. So it gives them a context that means something to them, which makes it more exciting. Another really unique feature of this program that nothing else had was Paige Keeley is a very successful author in the world of science. She created these probes, and they are at the beginning of each section to test for preconceptions and misconceptions to see what kids may or may think they know, may already know. And this one is about energy. Friends are playing kickball, and then what do you know about this ball? Does it have energy when it's on the ground? Does it have energy when it's not moving? Does it only have energy when it's moving? And knowing where kids, it's sort of like an old-fashioned KWL, what do you know, what do you want to know, what did you learn? But it's starting right up front with this formative assessment to see where you are. And that's a guiding principle that we need to assess students' prior knowledge and experience. Another thing that teachers were really excited about with the content literacy piece, having good informational text and nonfiction text to pair up with the science instruction that's already there. We don't have to shop for it. We don't have to find it. And then having paired readers in K-2, they were very excited about that feature. Sangari did not have that, so we were constantly trying to put things in. And I circled the little red circle at the bottom because it's a math component that's integrated because it talks about math and literacy, about analyzing data, collecting it, making a line graph, looking at the y-axis, looking at the x-axis, seeing if it makes a straight line, interpreting that. What does that mean? That's elementary school. Those are the great prerequisite skills for the middle school. Another great thing, in the corner there, that's one of our new kindergarten teachers, Teresa Kenny. She came to the overview of this, and we were doing one of those probes, and it was a baggie of water, and the trainer said, what happens if you stick a pencil through the baggie? And she said, well, it will leak. And I think all of us thought that would happen, and she pushed it in, and it went out the other side, and nothing happened. So she said, let me do it again. And you can't really see in that picture, but she did it 3 times, and it sealed each time. And everybody was hooked, and everybody was fascinated. And that's how this program likes to start, with that kind, almost like a magic trick. It's a hook for the kids. And the best part is there's a whole platform of PD for teachers about why, because they're not certified in science. And you saw those standards. They are daunting. And we can bring in lots of PD, but having a quick resource at the ready about what you're going to teach is huge. So we were really excited about that. Why doesn't it leak? Why doesn't it? Do you know why?
I don't.
Well, then you have to come and do our science lesson. There's no way that the air can escape because it creates a vacuum. Right? When you put it in and you put it out the other side, right? Because it stops it. She didn't do the whole lesson, but it was awesome because really you think the point of that pencil when it penetrates it's going to happen, but it doesn't.
I think Tina's going to go home and try this tonight.
Do it. You could really, you could entertain your family.
Just a regular plastic bag?
It just was a Ziploc bag, if you can see it in the corner. I think that was why. I think it was because it, but someone from home email me if that's not the case, because I honestly don't really remember, because we were also just so fascinated by it. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And, you know, it's 9:30 at night, so my brain. So the idea is inspired scientists start as inspired students, and that's what we want. I walk around the district all the time saying, and I really believe this, and you know how much I love math, but science should be the most fun part of a kid's day. It should be the most exciting thing that happens to them. So I think this program does a great job of meeting all the objectives of the rigor and the coherence and all of the things that the new standards want, but at the same time keeping kids engaged in science in a way that's going to hook them, engage them, get them excited about their career, things we weren't doing before. So that's it. I was pretty good, huh?
I think.
That was a great PowerPoint.
I think you probably could sell us on a really bad curriculum.
Yeah,
this is really great. It really is.
Beware of Allison.
However, I suspect this one's pretty good. So would anybody like to make a motion to adopt the Inspire Science program, including
I would love to make that.
Thank you.
Including the district textbook adoption.
Well, that accompanies, right?
Wes, I just want to specify what we're, but that's right.
Yep. Approve the program adoption recommendation as noted.
As presented by Allison.
Just as a thought, but we'll get to that. Let's just see, we have a motion in a second, then we'll get to more discussion.
I would like to make that motion, please.
I will second that motion, but
All right,
I also
Chris.
have a question.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm a little unclear on what we're getting. Is there an online component that the students will be able to use in addition to a textbook, in addition to PD for the
It's
teacher?
not really a textbook, it's more of a reference book. So in K-2, you saw the Be a Scientist notebook, that's a consumable. There's no other textbooky thing at that
Everything
level.
else is
They have the
online?
paired readers. Yep, they have their little informational textbooks. Readers. In 3rd and 4th, there is a hardcover reference book, but that's also updated online because that was my #1 question. What if the planets change order again? I don't want to have a book that's not accurate. So the Connect Ed platform, which we use at the middle school for our math program, is a big piece of this, so that it will always be updated and live. And we have a 6-year.
So the unit, the curriculum, the standards will always be updated. The only thing that does exist, which we wanted to, is the paired fiction, nonfiction. That exists in hard copy, which we want as part of the library.
Yes. And there's 6 reference books for classroom. The journals will be updated each year if things change, because those are consumable.
If the state changes the whole science thing again, in like
I've been told that's not going to happen.
5 years.
Yes.
This will update because it's online, and you might have to rearrange.
Well, it wouldn't update to our standards particularly. I mean, it is aligned with our standards right now, But given that it took Massachusetts, they started technically in 2009 looking at their science standards, and I wasn't going to say that, and then it took until 2016. I'm confident that they're not going to do that. I mean, I can't predict the future. If they did, then we would have to, just like everybody else, we'd have to look at our resources
Just
again.
like we just did.
Yeah.
Because we were
That's what we do.
before.
Yeah.
And now we just did go through a review and.
Yeah, we have to respond to whatever the demands are of the state to make sure that we're meeting the expectations. And that's one great thing about our district is we always do that because we want to make sure that we're right in the front and getting
Chris,
it.
you're probably picking up on the 6-year subscription.
6-year subscription.
Yes. So that's a consumable piece, that 6-year part. If anything changes in science, in the world of science, yes, that will change. And I could say, I don't think the NGSS would change either, but that would probably be, because we're really tied to that in Massachusetts. We're a little bit different because of the math piece, the way they don't have the cross-cutting concepts and the way we have grade level specific. But if something big were to change nationally, being a national publication, I'm sure they would change it. But it wouldn't, I don't think it would, I can't see that happening.
But Allison, why are you asking for a 6-year subscription?
It's more cost effective, first of all. There's a huge savings on going with the 6-year subscription. That's exactly how we do our math, and that's what we've done in the past. So one of the things I really want to give our teachers is stability. They were going to invest in this training, learn this program, and they would like some self-assuredness too that, oh, this isn't going to change in a couple of years. It's really hard, as you know, as a teacher, to learn a whole new program.
And we never changed on a dime like that anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we don't.
No, but I had the same question. I don't know if that's what
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It is a good question. And I'm not sure if my answer is a good answer, but that is the reality. We want to be fiscally responsible. I heard that mentioned earlier. We also want to give our teachers a chance to learn something and get good at it. And if this seems to be by far the best product to meet the new expectations, then I can't see any reason why we wouldn't invest in it.
Tina?
I just wanted to clarify the funding source. The estimated cost is $43,969 for this, and this is already in our FY17 budget. So it's instead of spending money on Sangari, we're spending that money on this, or is this in addition to?
So we have a certain, it's not that much, but we have a certain amount of money in that
Set
line
aside
item
for
every year.
textbooks?
And Amy and her team identify the priorities for spending that each year, and the elementary science was a priority identified, so that money is waiting for approval.
It's there, it's just waiting. That's all I wanted to know. It's not additional money, it's money that we've already put in the budget. Right.
And one of the things I didn't mention on the online platform that the teachers are really excited about is before teachers would go to Discovery streaming and try to find videos and create their PowerPoints. All of that is done in this platform. The videos are there, the slides are there if they want to use it to highlight the vocabulary, the concepts. It's really, really user friendly for them.
Do the students have access to it online?
They do, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt Inspire Science and the associated textbook cost. All those in favor? Surprisingly, it's unanimous.
I'd love the opportunity to come back as a teaching learning highlight in a couple of years, once kids have been doing this like we did before, so they can show you.
We'll give you 1 year.
They think. 1 year. My marching orders.
Yeah, get a move on. Hurry up and order.
Thank you all for your support.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thanks for staying, Allison.
Oh, anytime, anytime.
Thank you.
Great.
That was great.
Allison, thanks for a great year.
Oh, thank you.
That is
Thank you for all
pretty.
your support.
That is a pretty impressive program, I have to say.
Oh, I want to go see that. How many of us are going home and do the plastic bag?
Just Tina.
I might leave it for another day.
All right,
Wow.
superintendent's evaluation, continued discussion.
The only thing I'm adding, because I heard you were waiting for a report tonight, so, just joking. The last report you have is part of my superintendent goals. This is my professional practice goal, instructional rounds. I know it's quite a lengthy report, but there was so much to say. I will start where I ended at the end of the report, which is I found this a very rewarding year doing this with our group. And so, I'll again try to be succinct. Instructional rounds is 20 of us decide that we're going to participate in our professional practice goal of looking at something we want to look at in the district. If you remember last year, we looked at different things. Each group had a different area of interest. This year, we all focused on student engagement, which isn't a commonly used phrase, but a little understood concept, what it actually means. And we often talked about, well, we know it when we see it, that gut level instinct. And we wanted to go beyond that and say, not only do we know it when we see it, but what is it really? How do we define it? What teacher qualities exist when student engagement is really present? What are students doing that we can be assured they're fully and authentically engaged, not just busy or looking like they're active? So this is, I know, a lengthy report. I hope you all enjoyed it over the weekend. But it was really important for us to do because it crafted the development of understanding of student engagement, and we believe that really that underlies all aspects of teaching and learning. Doesn't matter what you teach, what your role is, student engagement is absolutely critical. So I'll summarize the year. We started with a checklist we created, so we didn't just go to somebody's definition and say, oh, I guess that's student engagement. We'll just go and see how often we see it. We actually started our own definition, the teacher will and the student will, and we started with a rough checklist of what we thought we should see. And then we went around and we looked, and every 6 weeks we went around in smaller groups depending on the content area of interest. Mine was doing literacy K-6. You were doing world language?
And English.
And English. The high school did a fascinating study of student engagement across different levels of courses at the high school. So if you're in college placement, if you're in honors, if you're in AP, are there different techniques used? Are students more or less engaged? And they only ended up with more questions, but they did find different levels of student engagement and practices therein across those. So we all picked where we wanted to go look for student engagement and learn a little bit more. So every 6 weeks we came back together. We'd look at our checklist, which we were calling our definition, and we would tweak it. We would let things go. We would add some things so that we were basically baking a cake of understanding and looking at authentic engagement. And I concluded for you the focus questions each group had. So let's see. We took the checklist, and some lovely person, I can't remember who put it into the rubric. One of our members put the checklist into a rubric so that we could look at it in a different way. And we said, try the checklist, try the rubric. What helps you as you're going around? So some people liked one or the other, and some made it more apparent what we needed to ask or tweak. And every time we came back to the large group meetings every 6 weeks, we reported out what each group saw, where we went, and we started a recording of the questions we still had, like does complexity or rigor of a particular task in a lesson plan influence student engagement? What are our own assumptions about what we expect to see in different types of settings, and are they even correct assumptions, or are they accurate? How do we know the difference between when students appear engaged versus when they actually are engaged? So we continue to have our professional dialogue to go back out, to come back together, and then by the end of the year, each group created a summary statement, which I've included for you, to summarize their work over the course of the year, what their group understands, where they are now, what is their thinking, and each group kind of summarize a little bit different. So, for example, I'll just randomly pick, so I didn't even highlight them. I'll read a few different types of things that were included in the summary statements. So one group said they noticed student engagement that it varied widely from grade level to grade level, content area to content area. So we would typically cross levels as well. And even class period to class period, which is kind of fascinating.
I don't find that surprising, having been in the classroom.
Yeah, but it is
it's fascinating,
study.
I don't, and you know, the different periods of the day.
That's true. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, like, what a lot of power into making that visible to us. Like, is it something we're doing? Is it something the kid's doing? Is it the nature of the class? What is it?
It's the
what
time
we
of the
observe.
day.
It's the nature of the school.
Nature of the school. So,
right, but the time of the day.
Yeah.
That's why a rotating schedule is sometimes very good.
Which is, what the high school uses. The things that we noticed the least were choice and authenticity in that group, that particular group. And I think all the groups would probably validated that when we had our discussion. So most groups were interested in the concept of choice and authenticity. So I know my group definitely was. The guided math group said we mostly observed compliance, so student compliance. They were doing what they were asked to do. They seemed busy versus the concept of flow. We had read an article about the flow and lesson momentum and what that looks like. And there's a couple of really interesting comments that they made, or quotes from other people. We feel our teachers strive to provide meaningful learning opportunities for students. Far too often, we not only cut the students' food, we also chew it. So that has to do with student engagement, though, because we have great people who want to do well by our kids, but at what point do we, as parents, back off and start the responsibility going to the student? And are we cognizant of when that moment comes? So we had a lot of self-reflection. We definitely decided we need to create the common definition. Let's see, I'll just skip around a little bit. We talked about engagement not being an accident. It is carefully and actively planned for. It goes beyond dazzling teaching practices. And that lack of authentic engagement we saw sometimes really impacted a lesson momentum or curriculum pace, that things really slowed down to the point where it was painful if authentic engagement wasn't present. And so we want to record that.
Does this give you food for thought for back-to-school PD or?
Yes, it does.
And even our professional read for this summer.
It does.
Good.
Which I brought my Vienna White right here.
Good.
At the end, I asked members of the group to share their personal or professional views on their experience participating in rounds in year 2. And one of our favorite phrases is when you go into a classroom, whoever's doing the work is doing the learning. And that is one of the easiest mantras for us to remember. If you go in a classroom and the teacher's doing most of the work, are the students authentically engaged, and are they doing the learning? And people loved that. Most of the staff members felt that, all of them felt that this was a really valuable, productive, professional experience for them. One staff member said, I'm very impressed and grateful to be part of a district that values such hands-on leadership, one that promoted cooperation and collegiality, that allows the rounds to take place in the first place. And that does extend to teachers. So this is the second year in a row we've done rounds. We put out there, we're going to be doing rounds. And we'd tell people, we're trying to figure out student engagement. They say, okay. We didn't have a single teacher in the district say, I'd rather not be visited, and I always give them the choice. No one. So
That's excellent.
But this was strictly administrators.
administrators, coordinators, directors, yes, our larger team. So it could be your department heads, it could be your curriculum directors, your team facilitators in special ed, anybody who has a leadership role.
And I think, I want to interrupt for just a moment, please.
Yes.
I think that is an extremely high compliment to the trust that has been built throughout the schools in this district.
Thank you. It's important.
Very few schools have I ever taught in that people, at least some, and up to several, were very hesitant to have any kind of leader or administrator or anything
That's true.
to walk.
It's not always part of the culture.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's an
Last year, we had one teacher saying, was going through some stuff and said, I'd rather not have a visit this year. I have enough going on. Fine. This year, we had nobody. So we just went wherever we wanted. They weren't announced. A group of people would wander in and say, oh, we're here now. We're doing instructional rounds.
Going from that to, I know there was one situation once where, you know, if the superintendent even walked into the building, it spread to the whole building that the super was around. So this is extremely rare.
It helps us
that
being professionals together. And as one person said, demonstrates that strong commitment to highlighting the positive examples of what happened. So when we see it, what are you doing as a teacher that we can communicate then to other people?
Wow.
And one administrator said it highlights, by going cross-grade level, highlights what we have in common rather than what separates us from elementary, middle to high.
Kudos to the culture you have created.
So I'll finish up. At the end, we realized that this work has such strong ties to so many instructional practices that we value here, such as UBD, Understanding by Design, which is like backwards planning, a backwards curriculum design model. Essential questions that we use in all of our curriculum documents. Technology integration, project-based learning, the small group workshop model we use for reading, writing, and math workshop, writing across the curriculum. Everything we do really has an impact by student engagement and that concept. And so what we want to do is share with our faculty and our staff at the beginning of the year what we learned in year one. But what we've learned is only what we've learned. So we feel we now have a better understanding, but we're not finished. So we're going to actually keep this concept rather than start with something new. We decided we finally know exactly what we're seeing when we say we know it when we see it. And better yet, we can articulate teacher and student behaviors that define authentic student engagement, and we can now explain it to others, but we haven't yet explained it to others. So that's our goal for the fall, is to continue the theme. We want to try out our rubric and our checklist a little bit more. And we used a couple of articles, but we love Chapter 6 in this book, 17,000 Classroom Visits Can't Be Wrong, on engagement, and they have some really practical, conceptual thoughts around engagement. They have 5 levels of engagement that we loved, we explored, we dissected that, and they have 8 engaging work qualities. Oh, look I put from page 82 to 82, which is actually not true. It goes on a couple of pages. And what they did was they literally conducted 17,000 classroom visits, and they, through research, correlated 8 things that go on in the classroom that do correlate with engagement: personal response, clear and modeled expectations, emotional and intellectual safety. That's what is the classroom environment that teachers created by which kids feel safe to take a risk, for example. Learning with others, sense of audience, choice, novelty and variety. And they have a high correlation with student engagement. So we're going to plan the summer, how do we engage teachers in communicating what we now know? And then in between our fabulous year around student engagement, this is our summer reading for our administrative retreat with our team of 32 people. It's called Teach Like a Pirate. Increase student engagement, boost your creativity, and transform your life as an educator. Yes, we pick a book every year. And this is the perfect book for in between the 2 years of studying and then impacting student engagement and learning with each other. So everybody every year gets a bookmark from me with your little reading assignment, and that went out today.
Nice.
So that is what we're doing, and I would say it's really good work. And as Allison said, she nerdily got is that what she said?
Dorkily.
Dorkily got excited about science. I dorkily got quite excited about instructional rounds this year. Just going to use her verb a lot till it becomes comfortable and I can remember it. So that is, as you know, it was part of my superintendent's goals. So I hope you kept your packet from last time about how to go about doing the superintendent's evaluation. But you, I'm sure, saw on my goals this year that the professional practice goal about rounds was exactly this, and that's where we are, and we're going to continue.
Great.
That's very helpful input for the evaluation we have to complete. And just by way of reminder, and for Bevy who wasn't here, and Bevy is so thorough, she had already texted me and said, when do we have to have our work done for the superintendent evaluation? But what we said, Bevy, is we'd like to have the inputs to me and the meetings with Debbie, the individual meetings, conducted by the first week of July. Next few weeks.
By the end of the first week of July?
Yeah, and
that
ballpark.
Sounds good.
Ballpark.
So that would be like the 7th.
Best you can.
With July 4th tossed into.
So anyway, come by tomorrow. I'll tell you what days I'm around, what days I'm not.
I have to have it assimilated and
I understand.
I
understand.
So,
okay.
Which is July 24th.
I understand. You need the time to.
But I need a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be by the end of the first week, but close to that.
Well, the beginning of the next week.
Yeah. So if you guys would each, and I need to do the same, book an
Would
appointment
be
with the superintendent.
Yeah.
And allow yourself some time to then do a write-up. That'd be great.
Thank you for listening. I know you don't need another. You didn't read another report, but I hope that the committee does see that when we establish our own administrative goals, they're pretty meaty and they involve very deep year-long work, whether it's the social emotional review or the instructional rounds.
We all care about the instruction as one of, if not the top priority, so I can imagine how that was dorkily exciting to.
That's dorkily exciting.
That is an adverb.
Well, it's going to be now.
Okay, other matters. Just moving us right along.
I hope everyone finds a perfect balance between relaxation and productivity this summer. And thank you for a great year serving with all of you again.
Thank you.
Likewise.
It's lovely.
Tina?
Well, Debbie and I talked about it. I just wanted to thank Mr. Russo for a great year. He stepped in at very short notice and started last July 1st. And all the feedback that I have heard from my Taylor School parents has been positive and wonderful. I think he's done a really good job under,
certainly has.
Circumstances that are less than ideal, stepping in at the last minute to a new school. So I wanted to thank Joe for doing a great job for us.
That's a nice comment.
Maybe the committee could write a nice little letter of thank you.
I think that would be a great idea.
We were there today. They were having a field day. He's been he's had a great year at that school. And I think parents, we heard some parents today, and staff would say it's been a great year.
Yeah.
He certainly has laid the foundation for us.
I'll take that to do, unless someone else would like to do it.
Thank you.
I think you'll do a great job, Bruce.
Okay, you got it. Anything else, Tina?
Of course, we have the budget summit tomorrow night. I'm planning to be there. Might be a tad late because of a commitment with my son, but I will be there. I think it should be an interesting night.
The cross-town,
cross-department
departmental budget review, and everybody's welcome.
Public Safety Building, McGinty Room at 7 p.m., right? And we have a school building committee meeting tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
3:30, yep.
3:30 here at the high school.
Yeah.
All right. That I will be hopefully on time for. That's all I have.
And we did post the meeting for tomorrow night, so if we have more than 2 of us there, if we have 3 or more there, we'll.
I don't believe I'm able to make that one.
Okay, that's fine. I think it's the first of many conversations.
Oh, there'll be more than tomorrow night.
Anything else, Tim?
I'm sure.
Nope, that's all I have.
Debbie?
Last day of school Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm sure parents are aware, but if you're not, it's last day of school Thursday. We always have 1 or 2, like, there's no school Friday.
And if you're current on your finals and you don't have a makeup final?
Oh, that's one of the bonus high school rules.
Yes, but for the others.
Which is quite popular.
Yes.
We did have a late, as you know.
You want to introduce it?
Yes, we found out Friday that we had a late donation, very generous. I don't know if you were able to see anything that we had on, I think I had it on Twitter. Unified Track is a new program that you supported here, which is regular and Special Olympics athletes working together for a unified track team. The advisors this year were Teresa Petty and Karen Frazier. They had a wonderful year. And we had a wonderfully unexpected donation from the New England Patriots Alumni Club for $2,500 to the Unified Track Program to support that and to keep them going for next year. So, wonderful.
Someone want a motion we approve? Or
Motion
accept?
to accept the donation with gratitude.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much to the Patriots Alumni Club.
Many, many thanks. And that's signed by Pete Brock, who's had, here's a lovely picture that was taken from you, if anyone wants to see the picture. There's Blake from our athletic department accepting it with a lot of people much taller than she is, as she said today. So we gave her a copy of that too, so she has it now. So it's it's also tied to the Y. Pete Brock does a lot of work with the Y around the integration initiatives. So they're very much interested in supporting things that involve special athletes and regular kids working together. So
great.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. That's it.
That's it for you. Amy?
I'm good. It's been a great year. I can't believe we're at the end of school.
I know.
It's been a busy year. It's been a great year, though.
You guys accomplished an awful lot. Chris?
I don't really have anything. Happy Juneteenth Day, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Big U.S. History Day.
That's right.
Nice.
That's it.
Bill?
Just the handout that I just sent around, you kind of charged us with working with the FMA on the Steve Massey dedication. So Actually, we did something similar, which you'll see soon at the town hall, where we did lettering over the different departments, and it really stands out nicely. So it's metal lettering. This will be a shiny black color, and basically it's going to go on the wall right above the two doors as you enter into that area. So
That'll look good.
That'll look very, coming into the school.
Yeah.
yes, so it'll be
Really catch
directly in
the
front of you. It's very visible. I mean,
Yeah.
I always get kind of confused when I look at inches on letters and think if that's big, but I know what 6 inches looks like up there. So these do look very pronounced, but not overstated. So I think this will look very good.
Excellent.
And so with your permission, this is what I've, spoken with the FMA on, and they've supported to move forward with as well.
Excellent.
So we do this by consensus, I guess?
Yeah, just general discussion.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't hear any concerns.
Looks good to me.
Wonderful.
Very nice. Anything else, Bill?
Nope, that's it, thanks.
Janet, anything we've forgotten?
Nope, just a reminder, there's a list of next year's meetings in your packet, so you have that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only other thing I had, and it's hard to single out any of our athletes because we had such a good athletic year, but
Didn't we?
Shreya Srinivasan,
Oh.
15th in the Nationals.
Thank you for remembering.
Very impressive.
I don't know, I mean, I haven't been here that long, but I don't remember someone in the Nationals.
Yeah, that's
15th place in the Nationals in triple
Pretty
jump.
awesome.
I thought that was
Amazing.
worthy of just a little bit of
Yes, it is.
congratulations.
Very good student to boot, academically, but, yeah, I'm so glad you remembered that. That, congratulations to Shreya, that's unbelievable.
And well covered, and as always, but I just wanted to add our congratulations as a committee and leadership team.
You don't see that often.
No.
That's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
It is.
Mom, I can go to
It is.
historical
It's like Ellington. It's like Ellington. How many make it to Ellington as often as we do?
17 times.
Right, so this is another one of those.
So we don't convene again until July 24th, is that right?
Correct.
That's correct.
So to the committee, thank you for a great year. Mrs. Bellinger for a great year leading the committee.
Thank you, Bruce.
And a good year.
And we'll see everybody in July.
That's right.
Anyone want to make a
Happy
motion?
4th.
I'll make a
Aye.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.